what is goon? There's like being a goon, which is what we're used to hearing here, but I think it's a noun as well over there.
Yeah, so goon is what we call really cheap wine. So in America, do you have wine that's bought in casks in a bag? Is that
Oh,
a thing?
oh hell yes we do. I have two of
Yeah,
them in my kitchen.
okay. Is that considered a luxury item or is it
It's
considered
it's cheap wine.
yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
okay, we're on the same page here.
Okay.
So we
Yeah,
call
yeah.
that goon. So
Goon.
a goon
Nice.
sack is a sack of wine.
Okay. Fantastic. Rick here with Noob Hammer. Obviously, I have Dineeth Liyanagama back for the third time. Technically the second time because our first interview was a two-parter, which was I think is still my longest video ever, which is fantastic. Wow. So Dineeth just finished 8th place with Deathwatch in the Normal Blokes 2021 GT, and there's a lot to unpack here because this is a GT that just finished like yesterday. It's Monday here, but it's Monday there as well.
It's currently Monday night here, yeah. So yes, 24 hours ago we finished.
Yeah, it's 5:30 a.m. here, and it's 10:30 p.m. there.
Yes.
So he came in 8th, and it was against some of the best players in Australia. So I really want to unpack all of this. But I want to start off a little differently than I usually do. So Dineeth, you helped like run this event. And what is it like running a GT, like finding the venue, dealing with money? Like I'm curious because I kind of want to start running RTTs in my own area, and other than reaching out to store owners or like VFW posts for the space, I don't really have a great place to start. So why don't you unpack what that's like?
I think this is probably our 5th or 6th event we've run, but it's probably only the second GT, like 2-day, a big event that we've run. There's a lot of moving parts, and I think the more people do events, and starting with RTTs and stuff, the simpler it is. So the basic requirements, players pack, make sure that's accurate. Getting it out on social media is surprisingly a big part of it. So people know your event is on. You've got to get butts in seats, so people need to know it's happening. And then, of course, venue, hall hire, terrain is a huge one as well.
That's a great point.
And here in Brisbane, one of our good friends, Joshua McGowan, who runs Gladiator Gaming, he has monthly tournaments where he has a lease at a venue, and he stores about 25 to 30 tables of terrain at the venue. So we just went to Josh and said, hey, can we pay you a nominal fee? Can you sort out the hall hire, the terrain, all that stuff? And he said, yep, cool. And then we just gave him, Josh, for that, you just play at our event, and you can have a month off, and you can actually play instead of run them.
Nice.
So we were really quite blessed and lucky that we had him at Gladiator Gaming to support us. Other things we had to look at was sorting trophies and stuff, and we kind of took the time this year to really get some nicer trophies. We got little glass like corporate plaques with our logo and everything on it. So yeah, that was a bigger investment, but it also meant essentially our prize supported trophies was about 80% of our revenue. So we gave a lot back this year.
That's awesome.
But look, other than that, other than that, we were really lucky that the Normal Blokes podcast hosts we could play, and we actually had two of our friends, Ben Warrior, Lachlan Carter, as the TOs of the event. So after we did all the pre-planning, the players packs, when lists and stuff were coming out, they stepped in as the ones that answered the TO questions, made the FAQ for the event, and took charge on the day. So we were really
cool.
lucky that we had a big team. Like our club has about 25 members, so we were able to pool into our resources. And yeah, look, at the end of the day, it ran really smoothly, and I think every event that we've ran is slowly getting a bit less stressful. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really a lot of fun. So if there's any prospective TOs, go for it.
So you're like in a groove at that point. Like you've done this enough that it's like, okay, we have a list of the things that we need. Like we need a venue, and we've used these guys before, so we'll just call them first and see what happens. Okay. Now and what do you charge like per person? Like for this GT?
Yeah, we were lucky because we could keep a lot of those costs low. I know, like a lot of other tournaments, the cost would be a lot higher for hall
Yeah.
hire and things like that. We charge 50 Australian dollars a head, which would be about 30 US a head.
Okay.
For a 2-dayer. No meals or anything included, just
Right.
the event. And yeah, we were able to we ran it at pretty much at net zero. So our costs for terrain and hall hire were about 500 to 600 Australian dollars, and then we put about 2,000 back into prize support.
Okay.
So
That's
yeah, it worked out really well.
That's
Yeah.
pretty rad. Yeah, that's nice. As a former LARP owner, I've run a whole bunch of those events, so I figured a lot of that experience and data would like transfer over. And it sounds like it does. The big one is always, like you said, terrain. Like you got to find good terrain. You got to find because while packing boxes work, it's not very immersive, and it feels bad to have people pay if you're gonna have like coffee cups on the table
The
and stuff.
interesting thing about terrain is all these other things you need for a tournament. You can just throw money at them and they'll happen. With terrain, it's like, wow, this is going to take 50 to 60 hours to make these tables, paint these tables, do all those steps.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, the premier event in Australia at the moment is Uprising Adelaide. It's a 100-player 8-rounder over 3 days, and the guys that ran it last year started their terrain planning about 5 or 6 months out.
Yeah, I believe
So they
it.
started well ahead of time. They started
Yeah.
laser cutting terrain, and they had beautiful tables. So
That's awesome.
if you are doing a tournament, make sure you plan that out. Like that's the earliest thing you need to sort out.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to start. I mean, with NRTT, obviously you can start with a much smaller player base because you're gonna have a maximum of like 16, right? Probably 10 to 12, really, which means you need 4 tables. If folks don't mind really waiting around, otherwise you can do 5. I've already got enough terrain for 3 tables. I 3D print most of my terrain, but then, like you said, you still have to, prime it, paint it, like make it look good. You don't just want to put black or white, like brand new 3D printed things out. So.
And one thing we did at our GT last year that Josh has actually kept on his terrain is we printed out a whole sheet of little labels of terrain saying ruins, like breachable, defensible, putting all the tags on them. And then we just like stuck them down to all the terrain features. So there was no questions asked. You got to a table, you knew exactly what things were.
That's fantastic.
So little stuff like that is really handy. Yeah.
When I started playing, the terrain rules were some of the most confusing to me. So I actually bought those I don't have them here, but I bought those little book sticker like marker things, and I actually wrote down like scalable, breachable, obscuring, so that I could remember what a ruin did, because it wasn't ingrained yet in my mind. So that's an awesome idea. But you went a little more high level than that, where you just said like, this is a ruin, right? Not those things were.
Oh, we just had a little key. So like a ruin would have like breachable, scalable. So it would have BSO, like LC for light cover, and then every table next to it had a little key for what those little things meant.
Beautiful.
So that was really handy. Yeah.
Was there a terrain like setup that you followed, like an ITC one, or was it the Games Workshop one? And for those of you who don't know, there's an organization run by Frontline Gaming, the ITC, which puts out a recommended terrain set. I think they did it in 8th as well, and they definitely have it for 9th, where they have a recommended amount of terrain. And then you have the Games Workshop, who just released like last month, or maybe 2 months ago now, their recommended terrain, and it's slightly different. So so what did you run with?
We in Australia, a lot of our events kind of lead up to team events. Like we've had this discussion before, we have a lot of team events here. So because of that, we follow closely the WTC format. So for example, we use the WTC FAQs at our event, and that's quite commonplace. So we loosely follow the terrain setup of WTC. Now, for those who've seen the WTC terrain setup, it is bloody dense. It's like we're looking like 12 obscuring ruins a table. So we didn't go that far.
Whoa.
But yeah. So we've
Isn't the ITC like 6? I think they want obscuring ruins.
Yeah. So we had essentially an obscuring ruin in each quarter in around the deployment zone area. We had some central obscuring, and there might be a little bit more. So we went for about 6 to 8 obscuring plus craters plus forests. So
Yeah,
the main things that we'd have is
that sounds like a solid amount of terrain, but please.
Yeah,
sorry.
So those familiar with a medium to light WTC table, that's usually what we're playing on. We're not really playing on the heavies. So it's what most people would probably consider a fairly dense table. Yeah. Like I could hide three dreadnoughts and 40 infantry on a couple of the tables I played on.
Beautiful. And for those of you who haven't listened to the last interview that I did with Dineeth, it's a long one, so get some peanuts or something, because you'll be there for a while. But we talk about the team format, and it sounds like team tournaments purposefully have they have some tables that are light on terrain, and they have some that are pretty standard, and then they have some that are pretty dense on purpose, and because picking your table and your matchup is part of the meta of playing and going to those events. So a normal GT, like a singles GT, you're assigned a table, and that table has the terrain that's already on it, and it has an assigned mission, and everything's already ready to go, like when you get there. So you just kind of go from table to table and matchup to matchup. But at a team event, it's a much more strategic part of the actual event. Is you can make a shooting army that would do really poorly on a dense board and have them do very, very well on a light board. Looking at you, Admech.
Yep.
Very cool. So this was a pretty low stress event for you. I mean, other than playing against some of the best players on that corner of the globe.
Yeah. It was great fun. I mean, I actually hadn't played a singles event since the ITC champs at the start of the year. I'd played just teams events up till now, and oh my goodness, singles is so much less stressful than team events, because I'm usually the guy captaining my team. So there's so much groundwork. There's a matchup spreadsheet. There's pairings. There's picking. There's so much. And at the end of the Sunday, you go home and you just want another weekend. But this is great. Like, I was having beers all weekend, hanging out with the guys, seeing how everyone else is going, talking to the TOs, just relaxing. All I had to think about was my game, so it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's nice that you could just chill for a bit. It must be nice too, and lots of stress off your back to know that you have everything already sorted out behind the scenes, and you have TOs that you can rely on to just get it done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, they did a spectacular job, and the two guys who TO, they're in the middle of building up a new army themselves, so they weren't really ready with an army to go. But conveniently, one of them is Ben was building a Grey Knights army, so we had heaps of FAQs and questions regarding Grey Knights, and he was just all on top of it, so it worked out really well.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, well, let's jump into your list real quick. I'm gonna use my web browser this time because you have this hilarious image here on your so Dineeth Liyanagama presents to you Fuck I Hate Space Marines.
So we've got a local player in our club, the Normal Blokes. His name's Wayne, and most of our club members are between 20 and 30. Wayne's the dad of our group. He's got kids that are the same age as some of our club members. He's like the Brad Chester of the Normal Blokes. But he
Beautiful.
He has these ripper one-liners, and they got so good that we started making them like Confucius memes. So we photoshopped his head and we've called it Wayne Fuchsius. If you read down the bottom, it says Wayne Fuchsius.
Yeah, I see that.
And he just has these ripper one-liners, and he hates Space Marine players. Oh no, okay, he doesn't hate the players. He hates playing against Space Marines
Gotcha.
because they've been so strong for so long. And for this event, he was playing Chaos for a while, and he switched over to Tyranids and Gene Stealer cults, and it's like the worst matchup possible if he's to play Space Marine. So I thought
especially
I'd throw him a bone.
Deathwatch.
And oh yeah, man, it's a rough time. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there to pick on him a little bit, but yeah.
So how would he say it?
I'd probably say it like, "Fuck, I hate Space Marines."
Just like under his breath, or would he like shout it, or what?
Nah,
or
he'd
he's
say
just
it
like
under his breath.
Okay,
He would say it under his breath.
I hate Space Marines. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, we've seen this kind of base for a while now for most Deathwatch lists. You've got Primaris Captain, Tech Marine, a Lieutenant in Reaver armor. You have your brick of Redemptors. Only 3 though. Not like over here where I've seen 6 of them. Well, not 6 Redemptors, but 6 Dreadnoughts, obviously.
Yeah, the 3 and 3, like the Volkites and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have that, and then, but you brought, I see, beautifully, you still have your Centurion assault squads in there. If you have any questions about how to use Centurions in a Deathwatch list, go ahead and listen to that first interview again, because we go into detail about how we love our little chunky underdogs. Then you have 3 Proteus kill teams, 10 lads, 10 chads, and 10 chumps.
That's it, mate.
So you've got your Combi Flamer team down here. I know that we talked a little bit about them in the past. I want to get into them in depth in a bit. You have your standard three biker, 2 Vanguard vets on the other 2 with shotguns, so they're running around flaming things and being generally obnoxious. And then you also have a Spectrus kill team, which I think is super neat.
Yes.
The Eliminators coming down in price was huge. We're starting to see them a lot in Deathwatch lists, either running the Laz Fusel or not. But you have 5 Infiltrators, obviously. Of course, with the Helix Gauntlet, because why wouldn't you?
That's it.
And then 5 Eliminators. So, if you don't mind, I'm gonna skip the Tech Marine and the Primaris Captain, because we've reviewed this.
We know what they do
a lot, but they have the Dominus Aegis and the Vorkin Pattern Auspicator, just so that we've talked about that. Here, though, in your Reaver Lieutenant, you've paid for the Beacon and Jealous, but also the Lord of Deceit Warlord trait, which, if I remember right, that one allows you to redeploy Phobos units for free after.
It's great. It's great.
So how are you using that?
Yeah, so there's a few things that came in, and the first step in this plan was I wanted to get rid of my Libby. I knew there'd be a lot of Grey Knights players there,
and Thousand,
and I knew that Liam Hackett was on T-Sons, and if we wanted to win this event, you had to get through Liam Hackett. So getting rid of him was the first thing. So I had to add didn't have to, but I added the Lieutenant in. I didn't need to add him in, but I thought, it could be cool. And then I realized if I've got a Lieutenant, the Tome of Ectoclades is cool. Not always essential, but it's cool. A lot of people will say it's an amazing relic, but like realistically, with the way the game's going and the density of the terrain, I'm never really going to get one turn where I go boom with the tome. Mm-hmm. It's always like a niche application. So then I looked into what else the list needed, and I was sick and tired of 2 things. I was sick and tired of Morvane's Agonizer coming and whipping an infantry unit, and an entire Drakari army charging that unit, and me not being able to fall back. I was done with that.
All right. And that's what the Beacon lets you do?
The Beacon lets me get out of there.
Yeah.
Yep. And there were 3 to 4 players that I knew would be bringing Orcs. One of them, spectacular player, Alex Terrison, who actually came 5th at this event. He's been on Orcs for like a year and a bit, and he's just a master in that codex. And I knew he'd be bringing a lot of crazy stuff, including commandos. So I wanted something. If I get defender, I just go boom, stick it in the middle of the board. Mid board's mine. So I thought, if I do that, that's cool. But then I just get tabled, or I just get hit if that thing, or get wrapped up, and that's a nightmare. So
Yeah.
I wanted Lord of Deceit in there, and it all kind of just fell into place really nicely.
I can I can see how like the puzzle pieces are starting to fall into place.
Yeah.
Like this is one of the things that I love with these long form interviews. Is like in a normal podcast, you get someone on who talks for 10 minutes and they've got to describe the whole list in 5 of those, right? But
There's no way, right?
But if we want to, you and I can spend 20 minutes just on the Reaver Lieutenant here, and we probably will. So
we spent half an hour talking about Assault Centurions last time.
Hell yeah, brother, and I'll do it again. I love those those bastards.
So that Reaver Lieutenant was amazing. And the other thing I did, and I call this telling my opponent all the things I can do so I don't give them a gotcha and I don't surprise them.
Yeah.
But there's some merit in kind of, if you tell your opponent the information, they also start like jumping at shadows a bit. So I always made sure I told my opponent, I just want to let you know before the game, I've got the beacon on this character, and I've got this 2 CP stratagem called Terror Troops, which at the start of my command phase, 2 CP, I can remove your obsec. I just want to let you know that.
Mm-hmm.
So the incentive for people to dive your base, take your primary off you because you've got Rights of War on, is so much less that you have. Not that you're going to do it, but you just have the threat of Terror Troops. It's massive. It's freaking massive.
I mean,
so
when I saw John Lennon's list and he had one of these in here, that was a huge piece for me. I was like, why the Reaver Lieutenant? That's like, everyone hates the Reavers, and then I'm like, oh, Terror Troops. That's it.
Yeah, it's so five racks don't roll up, or 10 truck boys don't roll up and just take your primary.
Yeah.
So he was so handy. So I like, of the 3 characters, of course, the captain is such a linch piece. In the Dreadnought line, but this Reaver Lieutenant added a lot, I thought. And if anyone hasn't tried Eliminators now at 25 points, please give them a shot, because I think I can probably talk about this Spectre team for a while there, Rick.
Man, I'm looking forward to it. I've got 6 of them, and I've been trying to make them work. I think they're a neat model. Is that where you want to move to?
Yeah,
because I still have some. I still have correct me if I'm wrong. So the Reaver Lieutenant in a matchup, let's say against like Death Guard, where they're slow, you can put them like mid board because they can forward deploy. You got that beacon there, right? You can put the infiltrators up there if you want to. I don't think that's how you actually use them. I think you were stringing them out on the back because you can get a huge bubble of do not drop here. And then you've got the beacon. So even if he's hanging out there by himself and he looks like he's hanging in the wind, at the end of your next movement phase, you can move any like kill team up there just like that right next to him. And suddenly there's now, it's not one like HQ sitting out there. Now it's like 10 upset, like very angry Space Marines.
Yeah, look, I'm actually not sure if the Reaver Lieutenant can forward deploy, and the reason I'm not sure is I never did it, so I'm not the person to ask. I know the Phobos Lieutenant can. I'm not sure if the Reaver one can, but I never did it. I just kept him back. Yeah, I kept him back. Look, there probably was a world, let's say 6 to 12 months ago, where that would be an awesome play to just give someone the crippling blow. But because of the way the game is now, where Marines, like I'm a firm believer in the fact that Marines are not the winners of the attrition war. Like, we can't win the attrition war against Drakari, against AdMech. So we can't afford to throw all our resources out, in one fell swoop.
So you are right.
And then lose it all.
The lieutenant cannot, the Reaver Lieutenant cannot forward deploy. I figured because Reavers were Phobos armor, that they were Phobos lieutenants, but apparently they're very different. Anyway,
like I normally kept him in my backfield, just to like give the rerolls, give the option of Terror Troops if I needed it, and because this list, the beacon wasn't really there to throw something forward, because I can always put something into the teleportarium if I want to be aggressive with it. The beacon was actually get myself unstuck. So if I got hit with
Yeah.
Morvane's Agonizer from Drakari, or hit with a beast that snag a strat,
Can
or
you
hit by
like,
Taraxi. Yeah, sorry.
can you explain those? I don't know what
Yeah, of
Morvane's
course.
Agonizer does. I've never
Yeah.
or the Beast Naga strat.
No, that's all right. So there's three main things here that will stop you falling back. The first one is a Drakari relic from the Cult of Strife book, or the supplement.
Mhm.
It's called Morvane's Agonizer, and it's classically put on a Hecatrix in a witch unit. And it's a whip that has a number of attacks. I can't remember exactly how many, but as long as an attack hits, that unit that got hit by it cannot fall back. Like, period, cannot fall back.
Okay.
And the reason that's really really uncomfortable is because the witch unit can go and it can hit it strikes first because it's Cult of Strife. So we've got a good player in our area, Brian Lakeland, and he'll set something like this up. He'll charge from behind a wall or with the Strife strat to ignore Overwatch to get into a unit.
Yep.
He'll then charge the Fight Last Archon into the unit, and he'll have, let's say, 5 Venoms. He'll charge all 5 Venoms into this little unit. He runs a list with 10 Venoms. It's
Yeah.
broken. It's so good. Anyway, Morvane's Agonizer hits. Fight
Okay.
Last Archon means he can't interrupt. All the Venoms hit, might kill like 2 or 3 guys. Let's say the remaining guys kill all the witches. Well, they still got hit by the whip. They can't fall back. And half this Drakari army is stuck in this infantry unit.
Yeah, so you can't
And
shoot. You cannot shoot them at all. You have
no,
to.
and
Yeah.
then the next turn, that Fight Last Archon actually fights properly, kills everything. And then we move on from there, and then the whole Drakari army just remusters and then throws
Okay.
itself at you. And Deathwatch at the moment can handle a lot of Drakari builds, and they can't handle that. And I knew, most of the Drakari players would have this tech in their list, so I needed the beacon for that.
That's super cool. Wow, we have
Yeah.
that's such a different meta than what you see over here, where it's Raider spam and like, yeah, you got to worry about Fight Last from Incubi, but like I've never heard of the Hexatrix with the Agonizer whip or whatever. I've never seen that.
Tell you what, that stops a speed wild shooting phase, and it stops an admech shooting phase right in their tracks. When that happens, turn 1 or 2, it's done. It's like this whole army stuck into this one unit, and then they've wasted their speed wire, or they've wasted their good battle doctriner, and then we're done. Yeah,
that's beautiful. I love that. Like I used to run drop pods, and I was talking to Jason Snagowski, and he's like, no, like you don't. Just be aware that if you do, right, a really good player is just going to charge it.
Yeah.
And then you can't shoot them on the turn that you want to be doing a lot of shooting. So you're kind of giving them an invulnerability in a way, because obviously if there is a unit in combat, you cannot fire into it. So, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is such a great point. And so they're effectively doing that, but with your own unit. They're just going to charge everything into your unit, and then they get one whole turn where they know you cannot shoot them.
Yeah, so it's like the floor is lava, and the Drakari players like jumping from like safe spot to safe spot. Having the beacon just takes that little tile out from under their foot. You're like, you're in the lava, mate. You're stuck in the lava.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So that's why I had the beacon, and I actually used the beacon only once in all 5 games, because I actually didn't catch Drakari, but in the game I used it. It was really handy. But yeah, I mean it's a cool bit of tech. I think a lot of the Deathwatch list teching into the damage builds are missing out on it, and it's nice to have it back because it's like the Tome of Vectorclades is like a damage crutch. Like it lets you just do more damage than expected. For me, the beacon is like a movement phase crutch. Like if I've messed up my movement phase one turn, or if I've overextended or underextended, I've got something that can get me out of trouble. So it's especially in a 5-round event, I'll have a few average games, so it was good.
That's
yeah,
rad.
man, that's a cool tech, and I think this singles list. I spent a bit of time trying to pick it for the meta, and I felt I had some answers. Like I didn't get into Orcs and Admech, but if I went into them, I had a couple answers that meant I wouldn't just get tabled.
That's good. That's fantastic. I love that. Like, see, like we just spent what 6 minutes just talking about the beacon.
Yeah,
love it. Mwah. All right, so that's really, and then with the Lord of Deceit Warlord trait, like you can redeploy those infiltrators and those eliminators if you realize you left your backfield open and could get dropped by AdMech infiltrators or whatever, or you could move them where you're like, oh, there's his character kind of hanging out in the wind. Maybe I can get real lucky.
Yeah. Lord of Deceit's really nice because it happens after the roll to go first. So let's say I'm playing, and this happened in my fourth game. I was playing against a Raven Guard player, and we're playing on battle lines. And the Raven Guard player, Will Milton, lovely guy, but he had some Vanguard bets and infiltrators. And I realized, if he takes the mid board, moves forward, it could be really aggressive. So that unit was so handy in that game. He actually dropped first, and he, dropped a few dudes there. And then I dropped that whole team in the middle of the board. And if we can talk about the Spectrus team, while there's an
Yeah.
infiltrator in the unit, the whole unit gets Omni Scramblers.
Right.
So the Eliminators do too. And the Eliminators coming on a 40 mil base means I have an effective range of blocking deep strikes of 54 inches sideways if I stretch it out max, and 24 inches forward and back.
Yeah.
So for deployment, it would be 54 by 18. And the gap in the middle of battle lines is only 60 by 24. So let's say if I got first drop, I could almost drop I could essentially cover the whole field except for 2 3-inch strips on the side.
So by doing this, for newer players or folks not familiar with Raven Guard, they can forward deploy pretty much anything that they want.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can do assaults and Charians and deep strike with them. They've got a whole bunch of wacky deep strike and deployment shenanigans. So what Dineeth is talking about here is he could come down. That's his first drop, and he's effectively blocked out the entire midboard and taken away their ability to do that. Because even if you're forward deploying against a normal, let's say, in cursor unit, you can't drop within 9 inches of them. But because these are infiltrators and eliminators with the infiltrator, Omni Scrambler, it's 12 inches now. So it's a huge bubble that he is denying the Raven Guard player to actually use.
If it's a pre-game move, they can come to 9 inches. But yeah, if it's any kind of redeploy like a beacon or something like that, it's got to be 12 inches. So that's handy. And the cool thing about that is after you roll for first, second, some rules state that you roll off to see who picks the order. Other rules say if you're going first, you have to do it first. So in the case that like I'm going first, it's fine because I'm already there. I can do whatever I want. In the case I'm going second, if some rules say, you have to come at me, or if we roll off and I win the roll off and say you have to do it first, my infiltrators are there as a shield.
Mm-hmm.
They have to like come forward, and they might only come forward like 2 or 3 inches. And then I Lord of Deceit them out. And that could mean they go to my backfield. That could mean I stick them into strat reserves for free. So like that is handy because then you just like, you have this big unit stretch out and they're gone.
Yep. So in that case, you've effectively blocked out the midboard during deployment. You force the Raven Guard player to be on its back foot where they don't want to be. And then you're just like, whoop, and you grab those units and you redeploy them wherever you actually need them.
It's great, man. It's great. And this is the first. I played 2 practice games with the list properly before the event. And in those practice games, I didn't quite grasp the ridiculous shit I could do with that unit. And during the tournament, it kind of just opened my eyes. Like I played Vital Intelligence and I went first. And I was like, wait a minute, I can stretch that out. I combat squad them up. And because they're sticky objectives, like if you're in the command phase, you have them. I'm like, wow, I just got 5 objectives. Wow.
So you were able to string this unit across and grab all 4 in the middle of Vital?
I combat squatted them in Vital.
Okay.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to reach otherwise.
Wow. Yeah. I was going to say, I don't think you could. I was like, that is some crazy measuring.
But yeah, like I was afraid of someone bringing 45 Orc Commandos, for example.
Is that a list? That sounds hilarious.
Yeah. And they can all forward deploy. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So, like, I was afraid of that list with the speed wire behind it. So I was like, man, if that happens, I need something to at least give me a chance. So if I win the defend, like if I lose the defender roll, it's GG. Like they drop in the middle, I'm done. But if I win the defender roll, I just need something to put out there so they can't put anything near me. and then let's say Speedway goes first. Cool.
I
I'll
love
get
this.
them out of there.
Man,
I'll get them out of there. Let them come forward, and then I'll hit them back. Yeah.
yeah. So similarly to how you get rid of one of the advantages of um the Raven Guard, you're doing the same thing with orcs or infiltrators from AdMac or any other
Oh,
for
that's the other thing I was scared about. Yeah.
cursors from like Ultramarines because they've got the redeploy strat or what is it, the what's the walker,
Oh, the Invicta Warsuits.
that
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Because
cool.
that's the other one I was afraid of, all the AdMake infiltrators. And I
Mhm.
realized the meta in Australia at least was going less towards the big 10 mans and more the little 5/5/5s.
Mhm.
And the bad thing, well, not the bad thing, but one of the downsides of the little 5-man is when you get your first drop, your footprint's smaller. So let's say the AdMech player gets a first drop, puts a 5-man in a ruin, and then I just take the rest of the table, and then all the infiltrators can't do anything.
Yeah,
So
that's fantastic.
yeah, so I kind of took advantage of other people not bringing as big units, and yeah, in some games it was pretty cool. But yeah, and the snipers. We'll talk about the games, but the snipers killed a couple characters just out of nowhere, and I was like, oh wow, this is 1 point more than an infiltrator, and it's actually doing something. Like it's
Yeah.
killing Ravenwing apothecaries. You know, like just out of nowhere, just boom, 8
Nice.
wounds.
And I would like
So
to remind everybody as well, if you haven't seen my interview with Z, eliminators in ruins or in light cover are actually really hard to take out, at least at range. Like, because you can transhuman them, they get another. So they're at a 1-up save if they're in cover thanks to camo cloaks. So they're actually really hard to get rid of. And then with the Helix Gauntlet too, even if you like wind up with a big shot or something, one gets through for 2 damage, you can just be like, I'm not gonna take it.
yeah. So the cool thing I was looking at, and you've probably heard about this as well, is you break the eliminators into combat squads of 4 and 1. So you stick 4 eliminators with the Helix, and then that goes into ruins with a 1-up save, and the Helix blinks the first wound off, so your snipers are safe.
Yep.
And then you have 1 eliminator with the 4 infills in a ruin, so you still have a 1-up save, but you don't have a Helix there. But because there's infiltrators in both units, you get Omni Scramblers on everyone. Right. So that's a way to maintain it. Yeah.
These are so some fun Deathwatch tricks.
Yeah, so that I didn't realize how impactful that was until I played it, because I'd heard people talk about it. But now with all the stuff that comes forward, like AdBeck infiltrators or commandos, Raven guards, even some ultras, like the Ultra Smash list. So like all those things, this was my favorite bit of tech in the list that I added. So yeah, it's great. If you haven't tried it, guys, please go for it.
It sounds beautiful. And then are there? I mean, the infiltrators, they auto wound if they hit on 6s and stuff, right? Like, so
I think so. I can't remember firing their guns, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. Like, I know the incursors ignore cover. These guys, I think, auto wound on 6s.
Are the auto wound.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Okay, so your prettiest kill teams. It looks like you got the standard bikers who have infantry keyword. So your squad 1 and 2 here, you probably combat squad them almost all the time.
There's one game I didn't at the end, and we can talk about that. But yeah, I combat squatted them 4 out of the 5 games. And nothing has really changed there, man. Nothing special. And
are you still finding? I mean, clearly you are, because they're in your list. But are you still like enjoying the shotguns? I still love them. They're hilarious. Yeah. They add so much versatility.
It also means like no one really wants to charge the 5-mans. Because like no one really wants to put like even like assault intercessors or vanguard vets. Like no one really wants to charge if they're going to lose 1 or 2 in Overwatch.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and, I like to remind my opponents all the time, don't forget, these guys have a flamer profile. Like, you want to charge 5 flamers, be my guest.
Like looking at a glance on the list, like once the biker and vanguard vets do their job, you've got 2 shotgun teams that have flamers in Overwatch. We have the combi flamer team, flamers in Overwatch.
Yep.
And then we have the assault send team, flamers in Overwatch. So the stuff that's alive turn 3, it's like They all have flamers. Enjoy charging them.
Yes. So, and Drukari's like just super sad. Wah wah.
Yeah. You turn off the Overwatch for one of them.
Yeah. I mean, just like, yeah, they're so fragile that if they do get flamed by any of these, you know, and they're usually MSU. So like 5 witches or 5 incubi like charging into one of these, they're not gonna make it. And if they do, it's gonna be one of them left, you know. And now suddenly, oh, you're not gonna lose the whole unit. You're just gonna lose most of it.
Yeah, and like we've talked about this before, the little kick of toughness 5 on the biker and vanguard vet units, like being able to make them wound you a toughness 5 and then take the storm shield, like that little kick of damage just means you might survive the incubi hitting you, which is lovely because if you have 1 claw left, it just kills like half the incubi. So like it's you know, stuff like that's really handy.
And then you just went with chain swords on them, which makes sense.
Sorry, that's the combi flamer team. Have we talked about that before?
No, so we haven't talked about it on a video, and I was just about to. So please tell me. Combi flamers are cheap; they're only 5 points each, and then you got the thunder hammer in there for like big nasty things like plague burst crawlers or whatever.
I just had 12 points spare. Like it just,
nice.
I just threw a Thundy in there. Yeah.
Okay.
I was like 2 more Storm Shields or a Thundy. I'm like, I guess I'll take a Thundy. So it's this unit's cool because I've been playing around with like both the Sense and a Flamer Bomb, and I just needed something because without the Corvus in the list, I needed something to just hit in the back line and just cause a bit of a literally like light a fire in their back line. So dropping them down. The flamers are handy because number 1, you're auto hitting. Number 2, people don't expect like 7 combi flamers to do anything, but all of a sudden, like we have 14 damage 2 shots with, you know, our guns, or we have 14 shots at -2, or we have 14 shots at +1 to wound if it's not a vehicle or whatever. So that addition, it's like a mini version of the firepower that the Centurions put out. They're both very similar profiles. Like the 2 damage or the +1 to wound on the combi flamers is nice, but the Centurions give me more shots. It's like 36 shots or whatever versus 14. So and you know the combi flame unit has way less combat than the Sense, for example, but they've got inverse. So there's like pros and cons of both sides of it. But the cool thing about this Proteus team is that it's obsec, and people have to deal with it. Like they can't just ignore it. If it drops in a corner, I like 2 CP, do an action and shoot, you know, so they're doing Octarius data and shooting. And then let's say they don't charge, but next turn they're in a position to White Scars charge onto an objective. Like people can't really ignore that.
So which you actually okay.
Sorry.
Oh no, I was so two things there. You were speaking very fast, so I want to no, it's okay. I just want to unpack it. So you drop these guys down because it's the combi flamer. You can take the -1 to hit and still fire both the flamer and the bolter profile. Because they're a Deathwatch combi flamer, you can use special issue ammunition, and that's how you get ignore cover or 1 more AP or 1 more damage or whatever. And then you can still wind up with the flamers, which you don't care that you're gonna take -1 to hit because they're flamers. With 7 of them, that's 7d6 shots. That's 7d6, not 76. Shots of flamer. So if they charge you, or if you're just like, I need to remove these, you know, 4 servitors that somebody is holding their backline with, they're guaranteed to die at that point. Okay.
And because you go past like the hit step, like you could actually put a lot of work into bigger stuff. Like I got really lucky in my 4th game, but they dropped down in a forest so they wouldn't get shot. And then they 1-hit a Redemptor. I just got super lucky. Not a Redemptor, a Contemptor, sorry. A 9-wound Contemptor.
I mean, still.
It just 1-hit it. Yeah, and I was like, okay, that's never happened before, but like I just expected to like chip it down a bit and make him scared not to charge it. But I was like, oh, cool, that was exciting. So, and
you just did like, that with all that firepower? You're just like, ugh.
Yeah, they just got really angry. But yeah, like, and then all of a sudden they drop in, you create this weird problem because they're like hopefully in cover or in a forest or something. Four of them have storm shields, so they'll be on a one-up save in the
Yeah.
cover or at neg 1 to hit in the forest. So it's a bit annoying to shoot them. And it's also a bit annoying to charge them because you know, you're going to cop the flamers. And I people who got around it did by charging a vehicle in, and they cop the flamers, they get wounded a bit, and the vehicle would hit, but the vehicle would probably take like 5 wounds on the way in.
Mm.
So I realized I had 2 points spare, and then I moved some stuff around to get 12 points spare, and then I chucked a thunderhammer in because I was like,
On
cool,
the
well that
sergeant, yeah.
vehicle that yeah, because I was like, that vehicle that comes in loses like half its wound on the flamers. That thunderhammer and the chainsaws hopefully clean it up, which means my opponent, even if it doesn't clean it up, my opponent realizes that and decides not to do it, which is great for me because I get to shoot
Yeah.
for another turn.
So
So
if they'll throw like a rhino or a truck or something
yeah, and that
into him,
rhino's dead.
or
Rhino's straight
or
dead.
a
Yeah,
venom or whatever. Yeah.
yeah. Like if you charge a venom into this thing, the venom gets picked up, right? So
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
it's pretty
The
comfortable.
minus one
So,
to hit doesn't matter. Not
no.
not with flamers.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So yeah, that little unit was cool. I actually found, even though we've talked nicely about it, I found it underperformed a little bit, like just a little bit. So I'm wondering if I swap like the two chain swords and the one storm shield for maybe a lightning claw or something, just so they have a bit more like threat. But I don't know if I want to lose the storm shield and make it more expensive because then that takes the unit up about 10
Yeah.
more points. So
I-
I've got to do a bit of thinking. Yeah.
Is that where they were falling down? Was like you loved their shooting, but you didn't like their their melee then?
Yeah, it's kind of like they drop down, kill something small, and then either there's nothing there for them to do later, and they just walk around for a bit, or I beacon them out, or you know, they drop in and then
I just thought about that. What a Chad move! Like, okay, they're done. I guess you guys can come home.
yeah,
You just beacon them back.
yeah.
Your opponent's like, fuck.
Just flick a banner up in their backfield and
Yeah,
just fuck off.
later.
Yeah. So like that was kind of handy. Yeah, but it was a bit annoying because it's like, wow, this unit can't really speed up and hit something hard because there's only one combat unit in there. So it was awkward while the Scents were like this beautiful, like perfect cookie cutter that could like fix any problem. So even the benefit of the Proteus team is that it's OBSEC. So that was
Yeah.
handy. But the Scents were like such an all-star in like most of these games. They were truly good. Yeah.
Well, look at that amazing transition into talking about your chonky boys. I know people like hate on these models and stuff. I like them. Yeah, they're expensive, but the siege drills do some work. Oh my gosh.
When you realize you can keep them in a ruin, and before you get charged, you can set to defend. So like Scents obviously don't get core, so they don't get rerolls.
Right.
But let's say
they do, however, our listeners out there, they do get the reroll ones to wound from being in a Deathwatch unit, though. Just FYI.
So let's say like you're in a building and some weak little Drakari thing charges you, or some Admech dude charges you. Hopefully not an infiltrator because you can't reroll against them. You set to defend, and let's say it's a Drakari witch unit, right?
Sure.
13 attacks, you hit on 2s rolling once, and if you've picked troops, you're wounding on 2s rolling once. So all of a sudden, this Scent unit that's not core is getting rerolls against Xenos. So like there's a few applications with Deathwatch that make them cool. The other thing is you stick them in cover.
That is a fantastic point. So
yeah, like
for those of you who
setting
are
to defend on them.
Yeah. So set to defend means that you get one up to your attack to your weapon skill during the fight phase. And then the way that he was getting reroll ones there to hit is from the Deathwatch Xenos Hunter chapter tactic, where against the Xenos factions we reroll ones to hit in combat. So now you're hitting on 2s and you're rerolling 1s. And then with the siege drills, because they're strength like 11 million or whatever, you're gonna wound on 2s, and then because we're Deathwatch, you're probably rerolling 1s. So that's how you give these Scents all of those crazy rerolls, which they usually wouldn't get because, like like Deaeth said, they're not core.
So you get this situation, like there's some games where I drop the sense forward aggressively. Like my round 2, I played against a Dark Angels player, and he was quite cagey, so I hit the sense into a side and flamed out, and just to like annoy one flank. But other times, like there are a few games where I either like defensively drop them in like just in front of my army or around my characters, or put them in a ruin, like just drop them in a ruin. And I just for the threat of either number 1 the white scars next turn, or number 2 if you charge
Oh,
this you're
man.
getting flamed,
That
or
is
if you charge this I'm going to set to defend.
holy
Yeah.
crap. I didn't even think about the fact that you can do Brotherhood a veteran's white scar these bad boys, and now they can advance and charge. So they'll lose their rerolls.
I white scars them 4 times in the event. In 4 games I white scars them.
Out of 5 or 6
out of 5. Yeah,
5
yeah.
games,
I was just looking back. Everything except for my 3rd game I did. Because they're just so ridiculous.
Cool.
Like and people kind of just walk away from them, and they're like, oh, I'm kind of 20 inches away, or I'm kind of like 18 inches away, and then you're like, oh, white scars, roll to 4, oh, that's a 9-inch charge, see you later, they're in. So and the cool thing is, like, even in that white scars process, like, you advance them, you can still shoot your flamers, so they're not losing a massive amount. Like, they can't shoot the hurricanes, the flamers are still going at it, and then you charge in because they're assault weapons. Yeah. So I think
that's
going
2d6 from each guy, right? So 66 shots. Yeah. Woo. It's a lot of flame.
Yeah. I think a big unit of sense is hard to justify just because our basic troops are so strong. But I think like 3 assault sense, 195 points, they ignore cover, so like that's great in itself.
Yeah. That's right.
I've considered putting the Centurion assault launchers on one of them. Because there's some really cool application with that, but I just don't want to lose the 12 shots on the Hurricane Bolter, because there's this strat where you kind of pop the assault launchers, and your opponent has to either pick to brace or duck for cover. And if they brace, they just take D3 mortal wounds.
Yeah.
Or if they duck for cover, I think it's they can't set to defend or Overwatch and get -1 to hit or something weird.
Yeah,
But
I think they can't Overwatch, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I thought about that, but I just wanted the extra shots just because, like, they'll drop down, cause a horrendous amount of just carnage on one flank, and it's the same as that flamer bomb. They would create these 2 big distractions, so my opponent couldn't really afford to go for my home field.
Did you ever have these guys just give you like a wacky trade, like where your opponent was like, "What the hell?"
Trying to think.
I had a game versus a Tau player, and he brought that big brick. I think it was 8 or 10 crisis suits.
Oh, the crisis steam.
And I dropped them down. I shot the flamers at him, which was dumb, but I did like 1 or 2 wounds. I got my charge off, and then they killed the whole.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think you can't find a better target than like Tyranid Warriors or Crisis Suits for that thing to go in and just like
and
through.
My opponent is like, what the hell just happened? Because it was like 410 points he had into them or something, and these like 195 point dudes just come down and are like, get out of here.
It's like in Pelennor Fields when the elephants arrive, mate. The Centurions are the elephants just running through.
Yeah. And then I'm like, well, if they die now, I mean, I'm completely happy with that. That was amazing.
I don't think I had any ridiculous trades all weekend. They were just picking up random stuff, and like wherever they dropped, in most cases, people just tried to stay away from. The one game I lost against the Grey Knights, I actually played them a little bit poorly, and we can talk about that game when we get to it. But the other ones went quite well. I'm probably not going to take this unit out. I'm probably going to take the Combi Flamer team out to try some new stuff, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I like the sense that I'd encourage anyone that hasn't tried them just to try a little unit of 3 as like a little scalpel, just to run around and just be annoying. There's a lot of stuff you can do with them.
That's a hilarious scalpel.
It's a big freaking scalpel.
And then you have 3 Redemptors all set up the same way: Icarus Rocket Pop, Storm Bolters, the Plasma Incinerator, and they're gonna sit more or less on your backfield with your lieutenant, so they're always rerolling 1s to wound, and your captain, so they're always rerolling 1s to hit. The Tech Marine's gonna give one, the 2-ups to hit by I think it's Awaken the Machine Spirits, and then
Little.
it's gonna heal them if they get hurt, and then you have in the back as well, you also have Nowhere to Hide from your captain, so they're gonna ignore cover on the closest target. Yeah, it's good. It's a lot of shooting.
Yeah.
And if you charge them, they're
look,
still strong in combat.
Yeah. Have you had a look at the Stem the Green Tide stratagem that we have against orcs?
Yeah, it lets us overwatch twice effectively.
Have you read that it lets you overwatch with every unit that orc unit declared?
Oh, no, I did not. That is a part of the...
So if they want to declare the whole dread line can overwatch.
Do you warn your opponents before they do that?
I tell every orc player. Yeah.
Do they do it anyway? They're like, "Wow, I don't give a shit."
On average maths, the boss on Squigglesword doesn't one hit the dreadnought on average maths, and the dreadnought one hits it back. So it's a pretty average trade.
Oh my god,
the 5-up invo throws it.
I've fought that boss on Squigglesword twice now, and it is just a damn nightmare every time.
Yeah.
My Grey Knight's one-shot it in combat, but man, like...
If it gets into a squishy target, it will go through it. But there's something about the 5-up invo, the neg 1 damage, and the potential 5-up feel no pain to the mortal wounds. That means the Dreadnought is like, you've got to get really lucky to kill the Redemptor. And even if you don't kill it, like it'll still slap it back and potentially kill it.
Oh, so for the 5-up feel no pain, you're using the... Oh man, what is that strat?
Armor of Contempt, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so
it's just in case they get like 6 or 8 mortal wounds on me. Like I wouldn't use it for 1. I'll just cop the 3.
Yeah,
just cop that.
Man, that
like
really
the few orc players I've played have kind of done that trade and realized it doesn't work. So it's usually not that. The big issue is when a big unit of 20B snaggers tries to come in and touch everything. And I was like, man, don't do it. Just don't do it, because you're gonna cop like 60 shots in Overwatch.
Yeah, and blast and everything.
Yeah, like, blast, and they'll get in, and then there'll be 7 guys left, and those 7 guys will just die, like to a fist.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's hilarious. I did not. So yeah, pro tip: Ivar approved right there. Don't forget that Stem the Green Tide lets you overwatch against everything that's declared. How, I mean, I know that Stem the Green Tide in 8th was like, for every model killed, it removed like an inch off of their charge, and you could end up in a situation where they had a 6-inch charge on their 30 Orc Boy unit, and now they have like a 17-inch charge or something, which, is obviously impossible.
In 8th edition, I made a 2-inch charge, a 14-inch charge. It was ridiculous.
Love it.
Yeah, the stuff you could do, but it's definitely more balanced now. It's just neg 2. But in saying that, like, that's a really cool tool for any situation where you're playing against orcs where they come in from reserve, and you've got like some kind of chaff shooting. Because if you get a wound through, it's probably going to kill the orc, right?
Yeah.
So like you're pushing the math so hard, it's probably worth the 2 CP there.
Yeah. So they're going from a 9-inch charge with rerolls to an 11-inch with rerolls. Which is legit. That is way harder. So every time you increase the difficulty by 1 there, it's a 16% return, or it's 16% harder for the orc player. So by reducing it down that far, they're required to make a 1 in 20. It's a 1 in. So it's 1 in 32 for a 12.
1 in 12. Yeah, it's a 1 in 12 chance. Yeah. Instead
of half. So it's a 50-ish% with a 9-inch with reroll. So if you move them to an 11, you're going down to like that math is way more in your favor.
It's horrific.
Yeah.
It's horrific how hard that charge becomes.
That's super cool.
And then, so
you may force them to spend the strat to do 3d6, which means that they're gonna burn more command points, which is also in your favor. It's good.
And I think with the way that works, the all player has to declare that first. So
Oh,
in
okay.
that kind of situation, you'd probably ask your opponent, "Hey, do you want to use 3d6 strat? Just make sure you know I can use this strat to neg your charge." And if they say yes, you can just not bother with using a strat. You're like, "Oh, you're in. Don't worry about it.
Beautiful. They're like,
No skin
haha,
off my back."
I can do this, but I don't have to.
Yeah.
There's so much.
Yeah, and that's the
There's
weird thing about the Deathwatch like toolkit. Like, I feel it makes me like
a
have to
dick.
tell my opponent all this stuff. Well, no, I have to tell them all this stuff, right? But I'm not going to use all this stuff. But if I use it and I don't tell them, I'm the dick. So
Yeah.
I'm like, hey man,
Yeah,
I got
that
to tell you
is.
this.
Yeah.
But at the same note, like I've got to do my due diligence and tell them.
Yeah, we
But on
don't
the same
play
note, like,
like most Space Marines at all. And there's so much
nah,
janky shit we can do. Like so
yeah,
flexible. Our even just our Proteus kill teams are just like, what? The bikers
yeah.
have the infantry keyword and can go through ruins? Ah.
Yeah. So like the preamble for my Deathwatch army every game is like 6 or 7 minutes. It's like me going through like this is this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this.
You should
And
just just stick it on a tape and play it back to them.
honestly, man, I've considered it, but people won't listen.
Gotcha.
But like because of that, the downside is, we have to do our due diligence and tell our opponents. But the like I don't want to say the good side because I don't want to, obviously be like saying that this is good to disadvantage your opponent, but the good side of it is because your opponent has this stuff to remember, it can affect their decision making and they can start jumping at the shadows. So like you obviously don't want to be a bad sport and weaponize this or anything, but like yeah, it can really confuse your opponent just because you have the tools, and even though you have the tools you might not even use them, and they'll still be like thinking about that and playing a bit more cagey, and then that can sometimes give you the board. I remember when I first ran the bikers, my opponent would always say, "Okay, what's their max advance and charge?" I was like, "Okay, well, 14, potentially a 6, potentially a charge, so potentially 32." And
But
in my head, I would say, I'm like, I'm never doing that. They're standing behind that wall the whole game.
yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
true.
people
Yeah,
start
you're
to
like,
really jump at the shadows. Yeah.
that's interesting. Yeah, that's the like I've just gotten to the point in my play where I'm like pre-measuring everything my opponent
Mm,
can do and asking those questions,
yeah.
which means like I find that with my Grey Knights, I want to play really cagey, like turn 1 and 2 usually, and then I want
Yeah.
to just explode out and like just smash you. So knowing what the threat ranges of stuff are, especially with like White Scars, with orcs, is
Mm,
very important. But you're on like a whole nother meta level where you're like, I mean, yeah, technically that unit has a threat range, but they're not going to go anywhere. Like, if you come
yeah.
close to me, I'll shoot you because it's free shooting. But otherwise, like, they're not going to go anywhere. But I'm not even at that spot yet where I'm like, okay, how is my opponent trying to use that unit? Because I just
Yeah.
see it as a potential threat, right?
Yes, and
So,
that's the thing. Like when everyone sees like all your units as a threat is when they start like playing their own mind games. So,
yeah. I mean,
but
that's
yeah,
an interesting point. So if we go back to your list and you look at this, I mean, you can, if you want to, we can look at the way that we play different than a normal space, a normal quote unquote Space Marines uh, chapter, and it's like, well, we have a 5-up Feel No Pain from the Dominus Aegis on that whole brick in the back. All that massive pile of shooting is getting +1 to hit against flyers from the Auspicator. The Lord of Deceit means we're already starting with crazy shenanigans in the deployment phase of the game. We got
yeah,
the Beacon Angelus for redeploying. We have a 1 CP strat to do stuff like Styx Centurions in Deep Strike, which usually isn't a thing most Space Marine chapters can do. Our shotgun guys all have flamers effectively. Our bikers are infantry. Like, I'm just going down and I'm looking at each unit and how we play differently, and it's nuts. All of our Proteus kill teams, or all of our kill teams are troops, so they all have OBSEC, even the Spectrus guys, which they normally don't. Then we've now got the entire Spectres team with Omni Scramblers, even though they usually wouldn't. We can give rerolls to our Assault Sense, right? Like, we play so much differently.
Yeah, we essentially have an Eldar Codex with a Marine data sheet. That's essentially what we have, right? Like, we have all the tricks that like an Eldari faction would have, but we're on 2-up, 4-ups with 2 wounds.
Yeah.
So.
That's an awesome way to describe that. But now that I like went down the list and I was talking about that, and that's ignoring the fact that we can make anything into White Scars or Blood Angels, which are really the only ones anyone uses, right? And then it's just,
hey mate, there's just you can make them Ultramarines. You can fall back and shoot. That's allowed.
fair. If you don't have a jump pack guy, yeah, that's fair. But I mean, with the Xenos Hunter chapter tactic, like, you know, against Xenos especially, it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually cool tech putting stuff into Crimson Fist to get +1 to hit against a horde.
And
exploding bolt.
That's fair. Yeah.
That's like actually legit on the sense. Yeah.
That works with the storm or the hurricane bolters only, though, right? It doesn't work with the flamers.
Yeah, that's
but
correct.
Still, that's 36 shots. I mean, it's a lot of shooting. All right, so let's get into... I just switched back to the list again. I meant to go to this other view of your beautiful face. Let's get into your matchup. So what was matchup number 1?
Yeah, so I mean, I went 4 rounds without catching a Xenos opponent. I played Power Armor for the first 4 rounds. So the first game I had against a lovely gentleman called Gary Levitt, he was playing Ravenwing. So he had a Dark Talon, Nephilim Jet Fighter. He had Samael, a Talon Master, a Primaris Chappie on bike, and an Apothecary, Ravenwing Apothecary. And then he had all the bikes. So he had 3 basic bikes, so just Ravenwing bikers, 3 Outriders, a big unit of 7 Black Knights, 3 attack bikes, and 3 ATVs. So
what's a Black
Pack in the Melter.
Knight?
It's the elite biker from Ravenwing. So it has a hammer that's like strength 6 or 7, neg something, damage something, and it's got plasma on the bike. So it's pretty cool. Like you can weapons to the Dark Age that unit to have 14. I think it's 14 plasma shots at 3 damage, which is pretty crazy. So it starts killing a lot of stuff real quick. So we released the matchups about 4 days before the event, and we did it live on our show. And I saw this pop up, and I was like, this is not the best round 1 because this list can table me if it goes first. It can kill like 2.5 dreads if it goes first.
Yeah, you did actually straight up say, well, I hope I don't go second.
yeah, because I was like, wow, I looked at the math and I looked at like the table doesn't matter at that stage, right? Because if I'm going second and I lose the pre-deploy step and I have to lord it to seat first, he can pre-game move his bikes and then move his bikes. So like all the Melter can see behind all the buildings turn 1 and I just die. And the Dark Talon just flies up, uses that Melter hole that he's made into the Dreadnought and shoots my character, and then I have no invos and everything falls apart. So I had to deploy very cagely, and I actually set this is where the Spectres team like blew my mind. I was like, cool, I'm going to set up at the 9-inch line, and he can't pre-game move if I win this roll-off. So
which you did?
Well, we ask if we're going to pre-game move, and because of that roll-off, he's like, no, I'm not going to use the strat. I was like, excellent, there we go, Lord of the Sea, get out of there.
Oh, okay. But, so the way that it all interesting.
Yeah. So like I was lucky in this game to go first. Not lucky because it helped the mission, but lucky because I could get a punch on him. So Dreadnoughts moved around, hit the Dark Talon, so killed the Dark Talon, and killed one of the 3 ATVs. And the ATVs were always my first priority in this mission because the other bikes, the Melter bikes, if I killed them down to 1 man, he heals it and brings one back with the Apothecary. But the ATVs,
they
can't bring back.
Do that, yeah.
So I thought,
thanks to that fact that's like a year old now.
That's it, yeah. So if I kill an ATV, that Melter gun's not coming back. If I kill a single multi-Melter bike, that Melter gun's coming back. And it's getting him, the biggest thing I thought is that Melter gun, when it comes back, gets him extra range. It literally gets him an extra 5-inch move when he
Yep.
resurrects it.
Yeah.
So I was like, shit, I can't let him have that.
So to
So
explain that a bit, when you bring back a model within a apothecary, it has to be in oh man, now I can't remember.
coherency, yeah.
Thank you. Coherency. It has to be in coherency with the unit that it's being brought back with, but that doesn't mean you can't just deploy it like right in front. So if you have a unit here, you can actually stick it up here, and now you've got more, now and now you've actually moved closer to your
like your 14
opponent.
inch. Your 14-inch moving unit has now moved 19 inches because of the size of the base and the coherency.
Yeah,
so
huge
it's
base.
essentially like a free advance and charge. And Liam Hackett with his Thousand Suns Lister won the event, was doing that with his Cult of Time, just resurrecting stuff to get like big movement. So I was afraid of that. So I was lucky I got my big first hit, killed a Dark Talon, killed an ATV. I got my pre-event and first game Judas out of the way this time, because in doing that, I left a character open. So his Nephilim came up and killed my Tech Marine. I was like, that's shit. So I left him open. But because of how few wounds the Ravenwing army has, it couldn't screen out. Like, it had no infantry. It was just all bikers.
Mhm.
So the Sense and the Flamer Bomb came into his backfield, and by the end of the turn 2, most of the bikes were dead. And then it was just clean up. The sniper team, the Eliminators, got a 1-hit on the Apothecary, which was cool. So that happened turn 3.
Well, that's just tit for tat for killing your Tech Marine. Just like, yeah. Oh yeah?
Well, yeah, we both took Assassinate, so that was pretty funny. So in terms of secondaries, every single game, except for the last one, which we'll talk about, I took either Engage on all fronts or Stranglehold as kind of like my Battlefield Supremacy one. And Octarius Data. Because the listers Rod super well. And Rod's kind of like a do and forget secondary, and I can just put CP into rodding and shooting and not worry about it. So that's handy. In this game, I took Assassinate just because I knew even if I went second, I could work my way into winning the attrition war as long as I didn't lose too many dreadnoughts. Just because my infantry can go in and battle the bikes.
Yeah.
So I knew at some stage in this game I'd have an opening to drop units onto the characters and kill them. So I took Assassinate. And I think I got a pretty handy kind of win. I'm just looking at the battle rounds results. Yeah, I think I got an 85-52 win in that game. So it set me up not too high, but in a good spot for round 2.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
It is so interesting and eye-opening to talk to a player who's so much more experienced than I am, and how, like, one of the things I struggle with is picking secondaries. I mean, I think we've talked about this. I know I've definitely discussed it in other interviews, but like, there's so many little mini metas in the game, right? Even before you roll one movement, like one advance, like there's the mini game of what's your list, there's the mini game of like, how are you going to deploy, and there's the mini game of what secondaries do you pick, and you can obviously do some of that in your list building. Like, I know that I'm really good at While We Stand or whatever, which is called what now? They
to the Last.
Yeah. So you can do some of that in your list building, which you clearly did with Stranglehold / Engage on all fronts and retrieve Octarius data. Like, that makes sense. So I always struggle with this, but you seem to have already pre-planned like how that game was going to go. Like, what the enemy army can do, at least in general. You definitely know what your army can do. And so you're like, all right, I have to kill those ATVs. I know I can like screen out his pre-deployment or pre-game move. Like you have all these tools, and then you can, knowing what those tools are, you can effectively pick a secondary where For me, I ask a question like, how many characters do you have? And if they say 4 or 5, I'm like, ooh, maybe I'll take assassinate. But like, you had a complete game plan into how you were going to get those points. That's fascinating.
I kind of see like experience in 40k as like there's a fog of war. Like when I first started 40k, I rocked up to a table and all I looked at was how am I going to deploy? And after I played a few more, I'd go, how am I going to deploy? How are they going to deploy?
Yeah.
And then I looked at how am I going to deploy? How are they going to deploy? What's turn 1? And then it was what's turn 2? What's turn 3? And as you get a bit more experience, I'm not there yet, but some of the really good players, they look at the table, they look at their army, they look at their opponent's army. What's the score at the end? Like they're good enough to do that.
Wow.
So
I'm
and
still
they're
at
good
that
enough
first phase there that you just mentioned. Like, how am I going to deploy?
Yeah, and look, I'm there sometimes as well, depending on how much knowledge I have of the matchup. So, one thing that's helped me a lot is Teams, because Teams forces you to have that conversation with yourself before the event when you're doing your pairing spreadsheet. But even in a singles environment,
that's a good point.
Yeah, I think Teams is. We've talked about this before. I think Teams is the best way to accelerate your ability to kind of foresee a game. But yeah, even in like this singles matchup, I kind of went through that process, and I knew kind of by turn 3, 4, if something hadn't gone horrifically wrong, most of his bike units would be dead, and I would still have like one of the scent unit, flame unit, whatever to do stuff. And the characters on their own don't do a massive amount. It's the damage in all the melter and the planes and things like that. So that's kind of how I saw the pieces falling. So and in the end of the game, I think I got the assassinate points, so it worked out all right. But and then the second game, Dark Angels again, exciting.
Really? Well, at least tell me it was a way different list. Like maybe there's some Terminators in there or something.
It was.
Okay, well that's good.
And unfortunately, it was the Terminator list on sweep and clear. So sweep and clear being the corner deployments. The secondary for sweep and clear is direct assault, which is just hold the objective in the middle. So
oh no,
good old Dark,
it's perfect for Dark Angels Terminators.
So the Dark Angels player Braden, he's a good friend of ours. He's been in our scene for a few years. He picked. Can you guess what he picked? Guess the 3 secondaries
he picked the 3 Dark Angel ones where he doesn't like have to move and he gets a whole bunch of points, right?
Stubborn Defiance.
Okay.
Yeah, he picked Stubborn Defiance.
Can you see my lack of like meta? Like I know that it's there, but I don't know what it's called.
And what else do you control the center for? He picked Oaths of Moment.
Oaths of Moment, yeah, 100%.
And then he picked the mission secondary to go forward. So his game plan was start in his corner and go forward.
Yep. And just plant in the middle and say, come at me with my crazy Terminators with storm shields, and you can like permanent transhuman, and very hard to shift.
He had 2 big term units, 2 little command squads, Talon Master, Apothecary, and then he had 2 Volkite Contemptors. And the interesting thing about this game is I know the Volkite Contemptors do almost nothing to the Dreadnoughts. The missiles might go through and maybe do like 4 or 5 wounds, whatever. I'll heal it up later.
They actually bought the missiles?
Yeah, the missiles are sick. I would definitely consider buying it. Yeah.
Are they like 25 points? Like they're a lot.
But if you look at what the Volkite Contemptors do into the squig buggies, it's like virtually nothing. It's of ramshackle.
So have we seen the end of the Volkite Contemptor meta, do you think?
Yeah, they're still okay, man. And look, like if Marines didn't have them, we'd be way worse. Like we have no answer to like a lot of things. Like Marines outside of Deathwatch have 0 shooting options that do that well into stuff like Drakari and Admech that these things do. Okay. So like they pick up like Admech dogs and infiltrators when they target them. So I think it's still good, but into the neg 1 damage meta, they really struggle. And that's why I think taking the missiles in a lot of armies, maybe not every army, but a lot of armies is really smart, because it's like, oh, I've got all these 2 damage shots and I've got these 2 D6 damage shots.
Okay.
So it's a little bit on top. Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, like this game, I kind of knew those Contemptors would hurt my infantry, but not my Deathwatch Dreadnoughts. So I played the 3 objective game. So I just got 50 in primary all game and hit all my infantry, and he just had to move forward. So I picked direct assault, I took engage, and I took rod.
So you stayed away from the middle. He purposely played towards the middle.
Not quite.
Oh, but that third one was the middle one then?
No, I played. So if there's like, it's like a 5 on the dice, right? So I played the bottom, top, and side. So I played like the L, and
Mm-hmm.
then he tried to play the two.
Oh, I
But
see. Okay.
in front of the two central ones, there was an obscuring ruin. So what I did, I went first. I stuck a I stuck a bike out onto the middle, just touching the middle for direct assault, and then I hid the rest of that unit behind the ruin. So if he shot it, I'd take the bike, and then he won't see anything else. So he kind of knew that, and he thought, "Oh, is
Okay.
this a bait? Is this not a bait?" And he realized that he can't get direct assault unless he charges me. So I kind of forced a trade of a 150 point biker kill team for a big unit of Terminators to come in.
So this was, yeah, okay. So
Yes.
this was playing around the mission, your opponent, your army, and the terrain. Like you
Yeah. So
knew.
it was.
Okay,
Yeah,
fascinating.
and look, I'm not going to say like I planned this all out because I didn't. I definitely didn't. I just wanted to put something cheap
Sure.
on the objective. That's all I was thinking about at that stage.
No,
But by me,
I just find this
but
like again, I find this fascinating. That's all.
yeah, but by me doing that, it went to my opponent Braden. It was okay. If I give him that, I don't get direct, I don't get oath, and I don't get primary next turn. So it's like a 15 point trade if he doesn't go for the middle,
Right.
and he can't really afford for me to build that up all game. So
Yeah.
he had to do something. Yeah, and his little command squads couldn't do it because they were too far away and they weren't obsec. So he had to put a 10 man in charge, and he puts his 10 man in charges. They're now too far away from the apothecary. I mentioned to Braden, hey man, I've got some snipers and I've got deep strikes. Keep your apothecary near your command squads. But he decided to keep it a bit further away,
Hmm.
just to shield other Terminators, which meant I could snipe it. So turn two, my dreadnoughts come out from the ruin that they've been hiding behind, shoot, charge,
Oh my
enter the
gosh.
middle. Yeah,
Are
kill
you
all 10 of the 10. Sorry.
hold on? Are you saying that on top of everything else that the Deathwing Terminators have, they also have bodyguard, or is it just the command squads that have
Just the
bodyguard?
command squads. Just the
Okay.
command squads.
Woo!
Yeah,
I was like, how did I
yeah,
miss that? That's insane.
yeah. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, so they went in. The dreadnoughts kind of, if you imagine the center objective, there's an L on each side. I was behind that L.
Okay.
The dreadnoughts came around, shot, charged. They all got in, and I put a biker team in as well. So the
You kind
end
of
position was
surrounded him.
all the Deathwing. Yeah, the end position was all the Deathwing Terminators were dead, and I had a biker team consolidated around my dreadnoughts. So he'd have to charge the bikers as a speed bump or shoot them out before he came in.
Hmm.
And if you shot them out, it means his next unit Terminators wouldn't be close enough to get an auto charge. So
I
that
was.
bikers were like
Yeah.
a body block there. Um, on the same note, I got really lucky. I dropped some assault sense in to the side. Combination of the snipers and the assault sense killed the apothecary. And I was like, okay, well, this one is in the bag at this stage because at the end of my turn two, 10 of the Terminators had died, the apothecary had died, and he's still on 5 primary.
What
So
was
um,
what?
the next turn, more Terminators came in. We kind of did that trade again. He just kept getting 5 primary. And he got his 15 stubborn defiance. Like I just let him have that backfield. I wasn't going anywhere near it. But it ended up with his 20 primary to my 45 primary. And then the secondaries kind of spoke for themselves. So the final score, getting it up,
Oh my
was
gosh!
91 to 77.
A Deathwing Terminator is really only 33 points.
It's ridiculous, man. Yeah.
Oh my god,
So
that's so
one of the
good.
benefits in this list was removing the apothecary, and him not having the banner meant he had no access to reduce my damage. So every plasma wound that went through was 3 damage.
Yeah, which
Every
is
fist
rough.
attack, yeah, every fist attack that went through is 3 damage. Every assault sense swing that went through into a Terminator 3 damage. So it just added up.
Yeah,
But yeah,
you got around that by just having 4 base damage.
yeah, and it was really interesting. Like it ended up being a big scrap for the middle, but it was a little bit too late for that. So I was pretty happy with that win. Yeah, I think I played that a little bit better than the first one as well. So it's good.
Man, they can even deny the witch against chaos psychers for free.
Yep.
Oh no, if they, I guess it's 5 points, but wow, man, Deathwing's good. 33 points, like small tangent. I'm playing Grey Knights again now that the ninth
Mm.
edition codex is out.
Yep.
42 points for a Terminator is a hard pill to swallow when you
Yeah.
compare it to like 33 point Deathwing or 33 point for a Deathwatch Terminator that can take a Storm Shield, can take a Cyclone Missile launcher, can do all this crazy stuff. I realize that the Grey Knight ones are also psychers with all those crazy things, but like, is that worth 9 points? I guess Games Workshop thinks so.
I think it's worth. I think it's worth the 1 point on the strike team, mate.
Yeah,
21 point strike.
That's for sure. 22
money.
Yeah, thank you very
22,
much.
sorry.
That's 22. It's 2 points.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I think strikes are undercosted for what they do, and it's forced. Like, I have so many Terminator models, and now it's like, oh, I had to go buy 3 goddamn boxes of strike squads because I just didn't have enough power armor bodies.
Yeah,
Lots of Terminator bodies.
Another great transition, mate. So my 3rd round opponent was actually Grey Knights.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it was my one loss of the event. So yeah, big shout out to Josh Engelke. He actually came all the way up from South Australia. And the distance traveled from South Australia to Queensland is kind of like the distance from, what's a good comparison? Probably like Mexico to New York.
Okay,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's like from one side of the country to another.
It's
so
like a good 12, 14 hours maybe of driving.
Yeah, it's actually it's a bit more than that. It'd probably be like 20 hours of driving, yeah.
And he still drove.
It's like, oh no, he flew.
Okay, I was gonna say, whew, like, no thanks.
It's like a 2.5, 3 day drive.
Yeah, that's still, I mean, that's still like 6, 7 hours flying probably.
Yeah, it's a good 5 or 6, something like that. Yeah. So but yeah, we had a great game. We played Vital Intelligence, and I felt really confident going into this mission. And just before I recorded with you, I actually spent a couple hours talking with another Grey Knight player from Victoria, Stuart Trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And Stuart came 3rd at our ITC champs with pre-Codex Grey Knights this year. So he's a weapon.
He came in 3rd with 8th edition Grey Knights?
Yeah, it's an absolute weapon, man.
This is a man I need to speak to, clearly.
Yeah, so we had a big debrief about this game because this is I made some big misplays this game, and I'm keen to talk about it. So
yeah, let's do it.
I took
let's
Vital
get into this meat.
I took Engage on All Fronts, I took Retrieval Terrier Starter, and I took Abhor the Witch. So like 3 pretty simple secondaries against GK.
Which, going back to the list discussion, you said you were dropping the Libby on purpose. So against T-Suns and Grey Knights, you could take Abhor the Witch. So already your list building little meta game is clearly already gonna get you some points, right? Like, Abhor the Witch is so good against Grey Knights and Thousand Suns.
Well, yeah, it's like as a Grey Knight player, right? Like, let's say you take Engage on All Fronts, you put a strike team out, you get 2 points, and then I kill it, I get 2 points. So like it means nothing, right? So we both get 2, but you've lost the resource. So like having the option to do that's really nice. I started, on the central deployments on Vital Intelligence. I put my little Spectrus teams, put my Dreadnoughts like pretty centrally, infantry around them, typical kind of deployment, nothing special. We do the roll-off, I go first. I have the option to redeploy my dudes, or like with Vital Intelligence, I could just run them back into cover and put Sticky on the objective, so I'm holding 5 at the start of my command phase.
Which, of course, you're going to do.
I didn't, because I'm bad.
Oh, okay.
Because I saw his Techmarine was out, and I was like, hey, I've sniped 2 characters. I've sniped an important character round 1 and round 2. I'm going to go for the snipe, because the Techmarine had his objective secured ability on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay.
Unyielding Anvil.
That's the one, yeah. So I was like, okay, let's do it. And that was a shocking mistake, because it flopped. And those eliminators that were out in the midboard were just a big, bunny hop for his entire army to jump on.
I see.
At the end of turn 1, they were like hidden in ruins, like on the front line. I'm on 0 primary, and then I killed 1 Dread Knight. I killed some units, so I got my little Abhor the Witch tally up. But we both pushed ourselves back to kind of 0 primary. But in my turn 3 was a big mistake. I moved a little bit too far forward with all my Dreadnoughts. And as you know, when Grey Knights can kind of fall in on something and do the smites, the shooting, the combat all at once, the whole thing collapses. So I maybe moved about 4 or 5 inches just too far to the center. And that's when he went, because he was in Tide of Shadows. He's like, okay, changing Tide, changing to the bonus to advance and charge Tide. And I was like, yeah, that's when I knew. I'm like, yep, I've lost this game. He's
Tide of
coming in.
Tide of Celerity, yeah, is where
Yeah.
it's pretty nice to guarantee charge. Because it's a minimum 6 at that point, right? And we
Yeah.
all know it's a dice game. So, if you have 4 or 6 inch charges that you want to make, that's a little over 50% chance if you don't have it's a little over 50% to get all 4 if you don't have the Tide, and if you do, it's guaranteed. So
it's 100%. Yeah.
Like, and Grey Knights are so good in melee now that you don't, against smaller things, you don't really need the mortal wounds from Tide of Convergence. Like, it's still very good. Do not get me wrong. It's great to slap things with mortal wounds, but like a 5-man strike squad rolling in is gonna have 16 attacks. Probably have hammer hands, so they're rerolling wounds. Strength 5 on the power swords. They could, they're all effectively master crafted power swords. I like to tell my opponents when I'm playing them, like, remember that offensively, every Grey Knight strike is a blade guard now.
Yeah, I was going to say that exact example. They're all blade guard.
A little worse. They don't get shock assault now, but like effectively, every little dude, when they charge you, is a blade guard now.
Yeah, they're like incubi, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're essentially like psychic incubi with bolters. Yeah,
I've made that and no ability to make you fight last. But no, I've made that same comparison. I'm like, I feel like in a lot of ways, and why I have to play kind of cagey now, turns 1 and 2, is like defensively we're a little beefier Drukhari, and offensively we're blade guard.
Yeah, you're just crazy. So
it's like, real good.
I learned a lot from that game. The first one is that, that I've talked before about the disparity that Deathwatch have against combat marines, and I know some people don't quite agree with it, but my personal opinion is, if you have a Deathwatch versus Blood Angels army, you can't really take it head on. Deathwatch versus White Scars army, can't really take it head on. Let's say Deathwatch versus Dark Angels army, yeah, you can kind of fight that because their powers elsewhere. But like a Blood Angels or White Scars army, it starts to get hard. Deathwatch versus Grey Knights is just like that. Like all their basic guys just cut straight through our basic guys. But on top of that, the psychic phase feels like half of another shooting phase in terms of they just walk up to you, smite, vortex, all these powers. Big purifying flame just straight through the line, and then shooting. The grandmasters are like, up +1 to wound, +1 damage, spell goes off, yep, shooting and charge, boom, all them damage. And at the start of that turn I had 2 CP, so I couldn't do Armor of Contempt.
This is turn 3.
Yeah couldn't do Armor of Contempt. I couldn't reroll a save, and I couldn't Overwatch if I wanted to interrupt.
Yeah,
and that was huge.
I was like, just wow, gonna say that. Like, I know why you're holding those 2.
It's got me in a corner. Yeah, so he charged everything. I think I interrupted with some sense and killed some. I think I killed a strike unit. But the game was done at that stage. I lost 2 dreadnoughts, a character, and about 60% of my infantry at the end of that turn. So it was like 1,000 to like 1,100 point turn. And Josh played that brilliantly. Like, I'm not going to say it's like I just walked into it or anything. He timed that so well. He went from Tide of Shadows straight into the Charge Tide and went straight in. And I learned a lot from that game. The big one is you shouldn't walk towards the Grey Knights. It's the biggest one. So I went down like really hard in this round. I'm just looking at the score.
While you look that up, I want everybody to know that just now I got a response from Josh. He wants to come on the show, so I'll be doing an interview with him soon, which will be awesome. And it'll be fun to get his replay of this match as well. And see how the two compare. He also accidentally mistyped my name as Knobhammer, N-O-B-B, instead of N-O-O-B. So now it's Knobhammer, which is
money,
really
mate.
unfortunate but hilarious. And I will own that one. I might have to change my icon to like a PG-13
Like
icon.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hammer. It's because you're an
I
orc
see.
player, right?
Right, yeah. Ooh, I could have. Maybe I will be now. No.
Yeah.
I'm.
But
Yeah. So what was the points? Sorry.
it was 89 to 39. So in
Ooh.
the WTC format, I think that's a 19-1. It's like in teams, it's a horrific loss.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So I learned a fair bit here. The big thing was moving forward. The second thing I kind of learned is when I deep strike the Centurions, and I talked about this with Stuart Trainer just before I started recording because we had a good little recap of this game on how to manage Grey Knights again. When you deep strike something in your head, it feels like, I'm deep striking this unit so I can dictate where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But in your opponent's head, when you deep strike a unit, they also think, okay, it's coming down outside of 9 inches. I can dictate where it goes, and I can more importantly, I can dictate what's in front of it. So, like, the Centurions are in space or in deep strike. He just pushes out with rhinos or a little strike team that the Centurions don't get value from. And then I end up just deep striking them in my backfield anyway. Versus we talked about the deployment and everything, and Stuart said, "Hey, Deathwatch, why didn't you just deploy them like in the ruin, threatening his 2 home objectives, like on the long side of Vital? And because you can't shoot it, you can't smite it, and you can't charge it with Dread Knights if it's in the ruin. And if you charge it with strikes, you set to defend. You might lose a Centurion on the way in, and then the remaining 2 punch out the remaining strikes.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, that's such a brilliant idea. Or just wrap it with shotguns so he can't engage it. And the cool thing about that is if you
Well,
imagine
they do have a
you
2-up
look,
armor. That's right. I was trying to
yeah,
do the math in my head, and I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure the strike squad wipes that squad. But then I'm like, no, actually they don't, because there are 4
yeah,
wounds.
so
No, they're 3 wounds, right?
4 wounds, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like 16 attacks will get about 10-ish hits, and you'll make about 4-ish wounds. And
Assuming
let's
they
say
don't
3,
have reroll wounds, but yeah.
yeah,
Just
sorry, yeah,
because strike squads, if you're gonna do something with them, you usually you would stick hammer
yeah,
hand on them.
yeah. I guess the ones that would be able to reach would be interceptor squads at that stage rather than the strikes. But
Yeah.
let's say I have to make 4 to 5 saves. Maybe 3 go through. That's 1.5 Centurions. So I
Yeah,
still have
that's a
2
good
left.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. So and those remaining 2 with 9 attacks, setting to defend, hitting on 2s, then winning on 2s, rolling 1s will kill that unit.
Yeah.
So like knowing that now, like knowing the fact that if instead of reserving them, if I start them on the board, they actually project all this threat. And if you kind of imagine, Rick, how Vital Intelligence looks, you've got your long board edge,
Yeah.
and imagine a ruin kind of in the middle of your long board edge in your deployment zone. And if you kind of imagine how close that ruin is to your opponent's 2 objectives,
It's only
just having
yeah. It's
they'll be like
so
13,
close.
15 inches. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a perfect position to have a Centurion unit ready to white scars out.
I
And
played I played a White Scars buddy of mine just 2 days ago, and we played Vital in Intelligence. And when I was setting up the board, I realized your long edge deployment is 40 inches long. Out of a 60-inch board on the long edge, you have 40 inches of it.
yeah.
You got 2/3 of it. It's nuts.
Yeah.
And you can, like, that little corner, the tiny little triangular piece. I'll throw up a map on here for my viewers, but like, you're so close to the enemy deployment zone. I mean, they
Crazy.
are too on the other side, but like, it's really close.
Yeah, so like maybe in that game, using the Centurions as a threat on the field would have been a lot better. So it's actually a really good learning experience, and hopefully the next time I play against Grey Knights, I can use that. So yeah, thanks Josh for a good game. I finished day 1 2-1, so I was actually pretty happy with that because of the field of 50-ish 48 players, there were about 15 people who'd represented their state team, and there was
Yeah.
4 Team Australia players there. So I was like, cool, if I can finish top 10, I will be ecstatic. But I'll be
Which you
super
did.
happy with Yeah, and I said I'd be super happy with 3-2, and I was already halfway there. I was 2-1, so I was like, cool. And then went out to dinner. We normally stay at the venue. We have a few drinks, have a good time with our friends, and we knew our matchup. And mission 4 was battle lines. And I was like,
Okay.
okay, I'm okay at battle lines, but I'm not great at battle lines.
And
And
Battle
I looked at
Lines
my
is
opponent.
the Dawn of War long edge deployment, right?
It's
Or
the
is it
short
the other
edge,
one?
so
Oh,
hammer and
okay.
anvil.
Hammer and
And
anvil.
it's the one where you have one objective, your opponent has one objective, and there's two in the middle. So it's like a diamond.
Okay.
Um, and I played against. I was playing against an opponent, Will Milton, who had Raven Guard. And two things went through my head. The first thing is like, if he goes first and I don't get a good drop, I'm going to get diddled. But the second thing that went through my head is, this is the perfect mission for that big infiltrator unit to do its thing. Um, so it came up to the table. It was actually a very light table. There was on the objectives there was no line of sight blocking terrain, but they were all in forests, so it was all dense cover. And I wish I had my Corvus this game because it would just like not care, not give a fuck. But
Yeah.
it was a really interesting game. He got first drop, so he pushed my forward deploys back a bit. But we both took Oath of Moment. We both took Octarius Data. I took Stranglehold and Will took Engage because Will's Raven Guard list 20 Vanguard vets, 2 Redemptors, 2 Contemptors, and 2 Landspeeder Storms. That was essentially the list. I took Oath. I normally don't like taking Oath at all. Like I think with the
Yeah.
current state of the game, it's a bit of a trap. But he had
Yeah.
all these vehicles and characters that were going to come forward. So I thought, even if I have to fall back, even if I can't make it to the middle, I'll just kill a Landspeeder Storm for a point. Like it's not the end of the world because I knew he'd want to feed the Landspeeder Storms first. So it was really interesting. So he went first. So he was in the middle. He didn't fall back. Didn't kill a vehicle for 3 Oath points. And I got to the middle. I killed a vehicle and didn't fall back for 4 Oath points. So start of the turn, my Oath was a bit higher. Stranglehold giving me 3 versus Engage for 2. I was a little bit higher, so I was that tiny, tiny bit ahead. And that pattern kind of kept happening. Like we would sacrifice units. He'd get 2 on Engage while I'll get 3 on Strangle, and he'd get 3 on Oath while I'd get 3, maybe 4 on Oath. So I had this
So
little
you were
lead.
pulling ahead a little bit, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it was turn 3 where Will had to make some big plays. He failed some key charges, and honestly, I think I just got very lucky. I dropped the Flamer Bomb down, and like I said before, just one hit a Contemptor. But I think just as that lead kind of pushed out, at the end there, I also had the bottom of turn, so I had the 15 primary at the end. So overall, this was probably the most um, probably the most tactical of the games that me and my opponent had, in the sense that we are both trying to be quite defensive. I had a really good game with Will. I actually gave Will my best sport vote at the end because that was a sick game and we want to play more. So, but yeah, really close game. I'll just pull up the final score now. It was 81-64, so within about kind of 15 to 17 points. So it was just
Yeah.
that
I
last
mean,
turn
that's
15 that pushed it out.
was gonna say that's just. I mean, you got that bonus of going second, so you could score at the end of your fifth.
Yeah. And I think the one thing I was scared about with Raven Guard was him getting into my characters with like a small unit of Vanguard vets, because it's actually quite oppressive how strong they start to get when they get into the characters with the +1 to hit, +1 to wound. Super Doctrine.
Okay, is
Because
that
he was playing.
that's a Raven
It's
Guard thing, and is it plus
yeah,
one
it's
to
like
hit and wound just against characters then?
yeah, it's
Oh,
their like super chapter tactic thing when they're in Tactical Doctrine. But
okay.
he also ran Born Heroes Whirlwind of Rage. So +1 to hit, so he's hitting on 2s, and 6s explode. So like all of a sudden, like everything's hitting. It's like 120% hit rate, and then like all the claws are wounding. So all my characters are taking like 15 lightning claw saves. So like
Yeah.
5 Vanguard vets could just blow through all my characters. That's what I was quite afraid of.
Uh-huh.
Um,
That's
look,
hilarious.
I used terrain to kind of hide my sense. I dropped my sense in my backfield this game and kind of walked them forward, which was handy because it meant like I didn't have to trade with bodies. I could just flame people off objectives. Nicely enough, the Omniscope actually removes all the benefits of cover, so it ignores dense as well, which is really handy.
Yeah.
So it was good in that game. Well, I had the Vorken to shoot the Vanguard vets, and I had nowhere to hide to remove light cover, or my opponent didn't have any way to remove the light or the dense. So I felt strong there. So, but yeah, overall, that was really it. It was just playing the secondaries. The stranglehold pick was a little bit better than the engage pick, I thought. But yeah, it was a good game, really good game, and that set me up 3-1. So I'd already achieved my target, and I was pushing for a big round 5.
So for Stranglehold, it's really good on 4 and 5 objective matches or maps, and it's like not that good on a 6 because you have to hold 3 and more, right? So on a
You have to hold. Well, it used to be you have to hold the majority. So it used to be you have to hold like 4 or whatever, or you have to hold more on a 6. Now it's you have to hold minimum 3 and more than your opponent.
right,
So the cool thing about the 6 objective one now is instead of holding 4, you can hold 3, and if there's one of the 3 objectives that you can see very clearly, you can shoot them off it.
right,
So it actually opens up Stranglehold for defensive shooting armies rather than just for aggressive melee armies. So the new Stranglehold, I think, is a bit better for Marines
okay,
because it means you don't have to be there all the time.
that's a good point.
Like if you imagine Vital Intelligence, you can hold your 3 and shoot the 4th versus you have to be on all 4. So it does open things up, but for battle lines, you're 100% right. It didn't change. You just got to hold 3. I actually strung out. I had a ruin in my home field, and I strung out my Spectrus team to touch the objective. But I had the infiltrators up top strung out, and then the eliminators in cover, and they were behind a forest.
Okay,
So the unit was neg 1 to hit.
yeah,
The unit
and in
was,
cover.
and then so 2 Redemptors and a Contemptor shot it. Neg 1 to hit, transhuman. It killed like 2 eliminators.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
feels real bad. That's only 50 points
Yeah.
for the models, and it
Because it's like
took a lot
all
of
the little shots.
like 300 points worth of shooting. to
Yeah,
kill
like the first
2 models.
Redemptor, the Redemptor shot. It's like all the little shots did nothing, and 1 plasma went through, and I was like, oh, Helix. And then the second Redemptor killed another one, and the Contemptor didn't do anything.
Oh.
So yeah, and the second Contemptor was killed by the Flamers. So like it was just ridiculous at that stage. But yeah, the Spectrus team pulled out hard. But yeah, I guess nothing else to report there. We'll move on to the final game, which actually was pretty exciting.
What an interesting, like, you can see how all those little tech choices that you picked came together there. I mean, granted, you got real lucky with your little combi flamer squad, but yeah, it was pretty interesting how all of those things worked out, right? Like,
yeah, the one thing I wanted, the one thing I missed without the Libby was actually Mantle of Shadows. It was because I loved having Mantle of Shadows to just protect my backfield.
yeah, you convinced me to try it out, and I've got 1,000-point bat rep up where I force my orc opponent to charge into a shaft. I think there were only 4 dudes left in it, but a 4-dude flamer squad.
Yes,
he took it, he charged, and I reminded him, like, I have flamers, and I think I had 1 CP left, so I killed it. I think it had 2 wounds left, and I killed it in Overwatch. Felt so good.
Yeah, that Neural Void spell, it's against Drakari, it's so good.
I'm sorry.
No, that's right. Like,
yeah.
I've put it on Drakari Grotesques, and I've stuck a Dreadnought in front of the Grotesque. Like, they're horrific at killing Dreadnoughts. So I stuck that Dreadnought in. I'm like, hey man,
Mantle
that
of
Grotesque
Shadows,
unit,
yeah.
it can no longer advance and charge all my characters behind this Dreadnought. It can only charge the Dreadnought, and like that's so powerful. But yeah, not having Mantle was a bit scary because I wanted to have it in the Orc matchup because all the artillery, but didn't actually come up. But yeah, I guess the final game, the mission was Overrun, which is a Dawn of War deployment hold 2, so it's a little bit different. I was playing against a bloke called Jai. He's played in our scene for a while. He was playing Necrons, so he was running Novok, which straight off the bat scared me.
Yeah,
Novok actually is very, very good at killing Marines.
They're the ones where everything's obsec, and then they have, what's their stratagem? It's some crazy.
It's actually that's Nihilak that's obsec.
Oh,
Novok's the one that gets an extra AP in combat.
Okay.
And they have the Hungry Void, what do you call it? Command protocol can be used more than once. And he's got the Silent King as well, so he can get extra strength and attack. So it's fucking fucking ridiculous. He also gets +1 to charge base, which is really good.
So suddenly, warriors are actually good in combat.
Yeah, crazy good in
because
combat.
like everybody just there's like, oh, they're garbage, whatever. But yeah, in this little dynasty with this kind of support, they actually get redonk.
Yeah, so he had 1 unit of 20 warriors, a chronomancer, an overlord, an Anrikia, and I cannot understate how good Anrikia is.
A what? Is
Oh,
that a
sorry, not
character?
Anrikia. Who's the big boy? Who's the guy that heals and buffs? It's not Anrikia, sorry. It's the new Illuminor Xeris, the spider
Oh,
dude.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
the guy with
buffing unit.
all the pistols.
No, that's actually the Hexmark, the cowboy.
Yeah, he's got
the guy that's
like 4 pistols or whatever.
Yeah. Illuminor's the guy that's like sucking the soul out of the marine. He's like the big spider dude.
Oh, I don't think I've
But
seen
yeah, so
that model in person.
he rolls a random buff. That's a permanent buff on a unit. So straight off the bat, he rolled up +1 toughness on his warriors, and I was like, oh fuck, warriors got T5, yeah. And then he rolled +1 toughness on his immortals. So he had 2 units of immortals, and then he had a 10-man Lich Guard unit, and then he had 20 warriors, 10 death marks, which were actually pretty good in this list, and the king.
The death marks are the snipers?
Yeah, so okay. I set this game up thinking I had the biggest brain play of my life. I was like, yes, I've got him, because I'm going to put the Spectrus team in front of my base so he can't Veil of Darkness in front of me. And then I'm going to just keep my big teams together, and I'm going to take, while we stand, we fight, on my 2 big teams and my Spectrus team, on my 2 Spectrus teams that were split up, I'm going to take banners, and I'm going to take the long vigil, mate.
Oh, so you're going to keep him out of your deployment zone.
Yeah. Because his dudes move 5 to 6 inches. And he can't Veil in front of me because of the 12-inch Deep Strike deny. So that was a great plan. All worked well. You know, he went first. I went second. Perfect. He moved some stuff up. He actually turned 1 Veiled forward as far as he could, which is actually the right thing to do in this game. And I was like, cool. Even if you do that now, you know, I'm pretty safe. I put my banners up, whatever. The stupid thing I did was throw a little 5-man, or one of the 10-man teams in to kill those warriors, and I didn't. I fell just short because they're T5, and that was on my While We Stands. Yeah, it was horrific.
And he brought them all back.
And that was one of my While We Stand units. He killed it straight off the bat. I was like, ooh, I'm on the back foot. I killed the 2 pylons on the Silent King because I was like, cool, then he can't shoot my dreadnoughts. But then he just pushed the Silent King and the warriors straight into the 3 dreadnoughts on one flank. So like one flank immediately collapsed. So I had to do some like mental gymnastics, and I had to do terror troops to claim an objective back, and you know, do all this stuff. But then I dropped my flamers and scents in the back line, and the flamer bomb dropped in. They charged. My opponent used some stratagems in Overwatch. Later found out we couldn't use them. Not a big deal. Used some stratagems in Overwatch. They actually killed 4 of my 7 flamer bomb on the way in, and then the Thunderhammer and the other 2 got in. They killed like 6 immortals and then died. But the Centurion unit at the same time, I just deep struck them in the middle of the board, and they just waited. And that was turn 2. End of turn 2. Yeah, in some middle ruin.
Okay.
Some middle ruin. And then turn 3, White Scars advance to charge, kill an objective, take a banner. White Scars advance to charge, kill an and they just swept through the entire backfield as he was sweeping through my backfield.
Yeah.
And so I did a turn 5. Yeah, I did a turn 5 beacon to save my to the last unit. I ended up getting 8 onto the last because I had kind of 1.5 of my 3 units left. I removed all his banners. I got, I think, 40 or 45 primary, and the final score was 77 to 78, and I won by 1 point.
Wow, that's fantastic! I wish you guys had like streamed that match, because
it ended with the assault sense. Killing a Crypto Thrall and spreading out over 2 objectives, just touching both 2 objectives to get my max primary. Like that's how it ended, and that's how I won by 1. It was, and that took taking his banners down, lost him 2, and then I flipped it by 1. It was like the most ridiculous game ever. Yeah.
Wow. So
that's another game where I learned, you know, I went way too early. I committed this big unit forward and gave him something to kind of springboard off and charge everything into.
Which is what he wants as as the melee
Oh,
Necrons. Like,
well,
yeah,
yeah.
he
I
wants.
only got 5 for long vigil. Like that was silly. Like I should have just stayed back, shot, not given him anything to charge off. Like
Yeah,
moved away if anything, and just not given him anything to charge.
yeah. Jason Snagowski is big on a long vigil,
Yeah.
and
Look,
just kind of
I
like
think it's
keeping everything out of your
yeah.
deployment
I
zone.
think it's a trap if your opponent needs to do engage on all fronts or needs to take you off primary. I think it's a big trap because they're just going to do it anyway.
Hmm.
But on the games, like it's great in like the Dark Angels mirror where they want to sit back.
Yeah,
Like in
against
that
the
Dark Angels
Terminator
game.
blob. Yeah,
Yeah, like in on that Dark Angels game, I almost took it. It's just that engage on all fronts is better for that map. Um, but yeah, like the long vigil's actually pretty spicy. But yeah, man, like that's the tournament. 4-1 ended up in 8th spot. So yeah, surprisingly did okay with the old D-Watch.
gosh, what an amazing last game though. I love
Oh
those
man.
nail biter like super close games.
Mm.
So maybe I just missed it, but if you had replayed that, what would you have taken in Sept Long Vigil, or you would have kept it
Uh,
but played cagier,
uh
which
I
is what you
didn't think
said.
I didn't think I could cripple a flank as strong as I did. Um, but I definitely would have taken engage because I would have had about 10 to 12 points on engage
Okay,
quite comfortably. Yeah.
and the I mean those assault scents were your MVPs then, just kind of
In that game, yeah, they
yeah
didn't kill a lot in points. Like they killed 10 death marks, 10 immortals, and some crypto thralls. So it's like yeah, okay,
yeah
300-ish, I think, points. Like a lot of
yeah,
points. But
but all those
it's more they killed
primary
them. Yeah, they
yeah
killed them. They just flipped the primary by about 20 points. They took 2 banners down and they put 1 up as well. So like
yeah
everything just added up.
that's huge.
Um, yeah, which
Yeah,
is
20
massive.
points is
So
huge. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just because like compared to like an obsec team that had like some chain swords and stuff, these guys just hit so much harder. And that neg 4, the neg 4 3 damage is just massive. Like if I got him, he got those sense into the king, they just one hit the king.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, those drills are hilarious models and also surprisingly good in combat.
Yeah, man. So no, look, I'm keen. I think I've got some interesting tech I want to try without the flamer bomb though, mate. You ready to hear it?
Yeah, please do. I was just about to ask, so having played this, how would
Yeah.
you modify your list now?
Yeah, so the flamer bomb is about 200-ish points, like 207 points as it stands. So I've got about 200 to play with. One thing I really want to try, because AdMech flyers and Orc flyers are actually such a big deal, is a single stalker.
I'm
So
not even in my
s-
mind,
a stalk.
I'm not even aware what a stalker is right now. I don't
So
know
it's
if I'm
it's
just having a
a
brain fart or what, but
the stalker and the hunter are the anti-air marine tanks. So the hunter has
oh,
the big
yeah.
missile on the back. The
Okay.
stalker has like the Icarus cannons,
That's
but
why
they've
I
got
don't know what it is.
extra armor. Yeah, so they're actually I think they're 11 wounds, but the big thing is they're toughness 8, which is really nice. So you get toughness 8, 11 wounds for 115 or so points. I think it's just under 120. Um, and stalkers have this cool ability where if you they have essentially 6 shots at strength 7 neg 1 2 damage. Now they're not core, but a tech marine can make them +1 to hit.
Mm-hmm.
They have a cool ability that they have 6 shots, but if they target an aircraft, you make 2 shots instead of 1. So they all of a sudden have 12 shots, and they get +1 to hit.
Is this just
So
to stop the whole, was it Def Bomber or whatever meta that's coming on with Speedwall right now?
yeah,
They're 42
it's for
shots
that.
or
It's for
whatever.
the AdMech flyer too. But
Mm-hmm.
stalkers now don't. They used to get a negative for not shooting fly. Now they don't.
Mm-hmm.
So just having those shots, like 6 shots at 48 inches, is quite oppressive. There's also a stratagem in the Marine book. I'm not exactly sure. I need to look it up. So I'll look it up now.
Here, actually, I think I. For Stalkers, you mean?
Yeah.
Um, Stalker, Space Marines, 115 points. Icarus Storm Cannons. Yeah, they're neg 1 AP, 2 damage, strength 7.
Yeah.
Make 2 hit rolls instead of 1. I'm only seeing that they can use Armor of Contempt and Smokescreen, but these are
Yeah.
not exactly the most comprehensive data sheets.
Yeah, I think they used to have one in the previous codex. I'm just going to check it now to see if they still have it. Stratagems.
Is this off the Rhino chassis?
It's off the Rhino chassis, yeah, but it's got a bit more armor to it.
Gotcha.
It's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to look.
Toughness
Flak
8.
missile, no. I'm just looking. No, it looks like they took the strat out. That's okay. There used to be a strat for stalkers to do a silly amount of damage. Um, but anyway, like it's 115 points for like a toughness 8 vehicle, which is kind of cool considering um, a dreadnought or a Redemptor dreadnought is 185 points for a toughness 7 vehicle with only
Yeah.
2 more wounds. So we start to have this stalker starts to fill an interesting role. Like the first role it can fill is it's actually a reasonably cheap smite screen at 10 points a wound that can sit in front of your army to armor a contempt. So it's also a nice little bit to just like screen out your backfield and keep on an objective if you're not afraid of obsec coming in.
Yeah.
And just the fact that it peppers at that range, like I was considering adding a unit of 3 suppressors because they do 9 shots at this profile.
Yeah.
But 3 suppressors for 1 die. Number 2 are heavy weapons, so if they move, they cop penalty.
Yeah.
So this thing is like a tougher version of 3 suppressors for just 3 more shots. So, like it might just feel that little peppering like tank. And if it like the way I would think of this is whatever it kills, it's just like bonus, like it's a bit for free. And it just threatens things like if there's rubric marines around, like it's strength 7 neg 1 2 damage. They don't really want to be shot by it because they push to the 4-up save.
Yeah.
So if you target this like piece of shit useless gun as a rubric unit, they might be inclined to pop the neg 1 damage.
It's minus 2 AP and Devastator. I mean,
Yeah,
hey,
that's it. Like they might be inclined to pop the neg 1 damage so they can get a better save, right?
Yeah.
And then you go, cool, they've popped the neg 1 damage. My 3 dreadnoughts are going to shoot elsewhere.
Yep.
So
So you're baiting out.
Yeah, it's like the guard armies that have the little auto cannons to proc overlapping fields of fire and stuff like that, or the Scion armies that blink a wound to pop the +1 to wound and stuff like that. So I want to trial it. I'm not convinced it'll be good, but I also have another 100 points to throw in because that's about 115, so about 90-ish points to throw in.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my previous lists, I was mucking around with 3 veteran bikers with the storm shield on the sergeant. And
I
I
remember
think
this. Yeah.
I think I want to try that again, just because the toughness 5 is nice when you're running into stuff that's good at killing Marines, and it's that 95 points is just a cheaper price point than the 3 biker 2 Vanguard vet unit. Like you lose the obsec, but it's just a cheap price point. The other cool thing is, like we talked about last time, it's a really good option to white scars 20-inch advance and charge, or just 20-inch advance and touch a objective for banners. Or just leaving it to late game, like leaving it in your backfield to late game to touch an objective. So it's either that or a single land speeder that I want to try, like a melter gun land speeder or something, just to do that same kind of role.
You mentioned suppressors, which I think are underrated. But Evan Stump, who is a Deathwatch player that I interviewed just the other day, he had one suppressor squad in his list that he used effectively just to run around and do rod. Yeah. So that's all they did, because they're very fast. They have fly, so they're ignoring most terrain, and they're not a big enough threat most of the time that they get shot at by anything. And with terrain, you can be like cagey about where they are. So, and you can deep strike them for free because they have death from above, and so that's what he used them for. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think 90 points.
They actually do a fair amount of firepower. Like they actually the damage is not silly because you've got, like, first off, their core, so they can benefit from all the benefits and stuff. You've got your rerolls. But 9 shots at autocannon profile is nothing to really joke about. Like that could potentially kill a raider, right? That's 18 potential damage. So
yeah, they're like they're almost perfect for popping raiders.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And like other Marine players don't really want to be hit by that when it's ignoring cover or when it's -2 AP ignoring cover. So
Mhm.
like, and the cool thing that Deathwatch has is because they're heavy weapons and we can save our Devastator Doctrine. We can pick on the turn they come in to be in heavy and then or to be in dev doc and then just clear out. My issue is the way I've been playing, I'll be saving, I'll almost be doing it like assault, tactical, tactical. So I'll waste the assault and then I'll go tactical, tactical for when my flamers and sense drop in. And then I'll have a big turn of heavy at the end just to be
Yep.
like, hello, boom. Or I just won't use heavy and I'll just stay in assault because assault's sick.
That's
So like
usually the way I play it too. It's just because like you can, if you're playing Ultramarines, you can just hide turn one, and then their Devastator is done, and you don't have to worry about, all those heavy weapons getting an extra AP
yeah.
anymore. But yeah, with Deathwatch, you can't do that. Usually,
Yeah,
I make like shooting lists, so I'll burn an assault on turn one, and I don't care because I
yeah,
want
and
to
like
save it.
if you need to skirmish turn one, like the assault dock really adds up. Like your lightning claws suddenly go to -3. Like your chainsword suddenly go to -2. Like it
Yeah.
really adds up on turn one. And people don't expect like little 5 shit kicker bike and like Vanguard vet unit to just bowl over their Marines. So yeah, I rate it, but I'm having trouble like synergizing suppressors well with the army because all the other infantry is tough and niggly to kill. Like it's so like annoying to get through. While the suppressors are like, oh, I'll point a gun at them and they die. So it's like a glaring. Like if I'm playing against a Deathwatch army that has all these Proteus teams and Spectrus teams that are like really fiddly to kill, and then there's these suppressors that also shoot really well, like
I see what
not
you're
beating
saying.
around the bush. They actually shoot quite well if they're
Oh
standing
yeah.
still, like
Yeah.
pre-rolls.
Mhm.
That's an easy like target priority in my opponent's head. Just going, yep, they need to die, and they're dead by like 3 plasma guns will shoot them and kill 3 dudes. Like not the end of the world. And then they just move on, and I go, cool, I've lost 100 points and an infantry unit that can move to 3 plasma guns. So that's what's stopping me taking them. I actually spent about 2 weeks trialing them. I might have even sent you a list, Rick, with some suppressors. But
Probably. We do share a
yeah,
lot of lists, so
yeah.
probably.
But like I tried taking a list with an Inquisitor and some suppressors for multiple like ways to turn off Overwatch, but it just didn't pan out the way I liked it. Like it
Yeah.
took away too much from the army, and I guess that's the trick. Both with GK and Deathwatch, you probably found out like not thinning it too much that you don't have enough tools.
So, I'm looking up your Land Raider Storm that you said, right? So,
Uh,
was it the Storm
I,
or the
I've
Melta one
used the
is?
storm. I've used the storm before in other armies, but Deathwatch can't actually take the scout speeder, the land speeder storm.
Oh, you're
I
right. You
was just
can't.
looking
Look at
at
that.
Yeah, I was just looking
Lame.
at a regular land speeder with either a multi melter or a heavy bolter just to keep it cheap,
Oh, I
just as a
see.
cheap like engage on all fronts or touch an objective for less points than our infantry unit.
Okay. Yeah, so you're looking at 70 points if you put the multi Melta on it. Um Oh, I guess so. This actually ties in well with where I was going with this. So that's 70 points, yeah, which means you actually have a couple, like 20-ish points left. Why not the Whirlwind? Because the Land Speeder also has data link telemetry.
Hmm.
So the Whirlwind will get +1 to its hit roll as long as you use the blast profile.
Yeah,
So
it's not bad. I mean, it's you could, but I think either the whirlwind and the stalker, they're not there to like really dunk on something.
I was
On
more
top of that,
thinking turning off Overwatch.
oh yeah, but it could be cool, but I don't really see this army charging into stuff that it cares about overwatching. Like
That's
in the
fair.
current meta, like if Tau comes out or Eldar comes out and they have some crazy like supporting fire mechanic, then maybe. But I find with Deathwatch at this stage, I'm not really doing these big engagements. It's more like little skirmish fights, and the big engagements are like getting shot out. Like if there's something that needs to die, I'm just going to plasma it or flame it rather than charge it.
That's
Excuse me.
fair.
Um, But yeah, look, I think in this list I haven't really found a use for the whirlwind. It's also like I can see the stalker because there's some applications where it does a lot of damage. And the T8 is not to be like shirked. Like when bright lances like miss wounding 50% of the time, it's actually a bit of a big deal. And you can pop smoke on it as well. So if something like reasonable targets it, you just pop smoke,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it becomes like a real bitch to kill. Because it's T8 and neg 1 to hit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get it to like 5 wounds. The Tech Marine just hammers it, and it's back to full profile. And like it's just like a niggly 100-point unit that like 150-point like tank that like no one wants to kill. So like I want to explore that and see if it has tech,
Yeah.
and then either like you said, a single land speeder, or like that little unit of 3 bikers. Just because in most of the games, that flamer bomb that I had, it wasn't really doing damage. It was just kind of existing in a space, and I can kind of exist in a space for cheaper than 207 points, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It is fun to see so much flame in a matchup, though. You know, like, because
Yeah.
again, you got these armies that, you know, Grey Knights, they want to be charging you all the time. You got, you know, Drukhari, obviously, you know, and the more you can discourage charging, you know, if you're in
Yeah.
tactical doctrine, what is it, minus 1 AP on those flamers? Now Grey Knights are gonna miss half of their saves. You know, 6d6 shots is a lot.
Yeah.
7d6 on the other squad is even more, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another one of those situations where like if you don't give your opponent a choice, they can't make the wrong choice. Like every time you give your opponent a choice, there's the possibility that they'll, you know, go the wrong way, and
Yeah.
something will go wrong, and he'll help you out. So if you give them this weird choice, it's like you can charge this, but you might die in Overwatch. It's like, oh, like they're
He
just second
chose
guessing it now as well.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic, man. I didn't even know what the stalker was, obviously. I mean, you saw how confused I was. I was like, the what?
They used to be good in they used to be kind of cool in 8th edition. And then 7th ed, a lot of people ran them in like random marine lists, but I ran a couple in Salamander's lists in 8th edition, so they're kind of cool.
It's neat. It's a neat tech choice because with the 3 Redemptors out there, the odds of it getting focus fired are pretty nil.
Yeah, like,
right? Because you're gonna, I mean, all those dark glances and stuff are gonna go into the Redemptors. They're gonna try to take out a Redemptor. I mean, if you have the choice, you're not gonna shoot the Stalker over the Redemptor. The Redemptor is the way better target. So, yeah.
And you, the Stalker, like for example, it doesn't have the invos from the Dominus Aegis. It doesn't have, you know, an ability to get cover, for example. So it's actually like an easy kill. But if you stick out like your linchpin unit to shoot the Stalker, and then my 3 Dreadnoughts kill your linchpin unit, it's like, okay, well, nothing else can kill my Dreadnought. Let's move on. So
Yeah.
I wanna explore that a little bit more. And I found it was an interesting dynamic that happened when I took the Corvuses out, and I only had the 3 Dreadnoughts, that I only gave up 6 on Bring It Down. And it was interesting because no one would pick Bring It Down, so I could just say, okay, well, all my Dreadnoughts can march up and do whatever they like. While before, if they pick Bring It Down, I could be cagey with one of them, or cagey with the plane or something, and re-hamper their scoring. So, like, maybe adding the Stalker in, potentially giving up 8 for Bring It Down, might tempt some people to jump in there and try and, you know, tussle for the 8 points and fall over. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes.
I mean,
but that's really it.
Yeah, actually, I meant to point that out. On your list here, at the very bottom, you actually wrote down what you give up if people take certain secondaries against you, which I thought was actually pretty cool. So the list that you took to this tournament would give up 6 for Bring It Down, so nobody's gonna take that. No prisoners is okay at 9, and Assassinate is decent at 10. I'm gonna plug your podcast now. So you run or help run the Normal Blokes podcast, which is some amazing commentary, and one of them which is a little out of date now because the GT 2021 pack came out, went into every secondary. The averages across whatever 15 or 30,000 matches or whatever on Best Coast pairings. And they talked in depth about every single one of them. And while some of them have changed slightly now, the big takeaway that I got is if you can't score at least, if a secondary gives you 8 points, assuming you're getting 30 on primary, you're now at exactly 50% chance to actually win. So all three of your secondaries need to get 8 points at least, and then you need to score 30 on your primary to have a 50% chance of winning.
Yes.
So every point over that is vastly increases your chance to actually win. So so bring it down 6 points. That's actually a terrible choice. Unless there's literally nothing else against you, which there are, obviously, just from no prisoners and assassinate are typically better choices.
Like it's so interesting, isn't it? Like I took Octaria starter, and I think only one game I got all 4 quarters, and I was comfortable with the 8 because going, cool, that just fills that slot for 8 points. Like sure, I could have taken banners, but like screw that. Like I'd rather just get Octarius comfortably and then move on and not worry about my primary getting stolen and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's interesting that 8 and like I personally don't like taking assassinate unless I can really do it, or unless they've got like 5 characters, right? Like it's a bit of a no-brainer if they've got like 600 or 700 points in characters, because then there's no army, so I'll just kill the army and then move on to the characters. But like bring it down. Like in these orc lists that are coming out, it's super tempting to take it. If the orc list gives up like 19, whatever, go ahead and take it. But if the orc list gives up 10, I'd be really questioning, whether to take it, because if 4 of those bring it down points are rocket truck swig buggies that sit in the backfield and you'll never see them all game. Horrific secondary to take.
There's always those specifics, like when you look at your matchup and your army and the mission and the enemy's army, and you're trying to pick that third secondary, right? Because traditionally it's like when you build your list, you're gonna build it for 2 secondaries, and then your third one will be a swing based on the mission or based on your opponent. So you're gonna want to look at it, and just like you said, if it's all out of line of sight and they're going to be in the back of their deployment zone the whole mission or game, then like that's probably a terrible choice. Or no, but good ones are like no prisoners is usually very good. I assume your calculation there is if you get tabled.
That's my whole army. It's I think it's like exactly 90 or like 92 kill points, so it becomes 9 on no prisoners.
And then how often though do you see like legit tabling?
Oh, the GK did a pretty good job, mate. The Grey Knights did a pretty good job. But other than that, I mean, the closest I got was the Necrons. The Necrons almost tabled me. Like I had my 2 while we stands and the Sense left, so that would probably have gotten about 5 to 6 points. But it's pretty rare. Like if I don't play like an idiot, I think it's pretty rare. If I play like an idiot, then maybe.
I guess against
same.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
No, I was just gonna say, like, especially if the army itself only gives up kind of like the 7 to 9 on no prisoners, like I wouldn't take it. If it gives up like 17, then go for gold, because they're gonna have to give up resources for them to play the game. And if you're just gonna slowly kill the resources, that's fine.
I was just gonna say like, silver tide Necrons, which you don't see very often anymore, but if they've got 2 or 3 blobs of 20 warriors. That's a lot. That's 6 points right there, just between those 3 blobs of 20. So.
And as per, I believe the WTC FAQ counts Necron warriors before the reanimation for no prisoners. So if you kill 10, 4 come back, you still got your 10. So.
Oh really? Oh okay. That's
Yeah,
actually
it's pretty
actually good to
brutal.
know. Yeah. So they just give up, no prisoners like crazy. But I don't
Yep.
really see Silver Tide Necrons being played much anymore. You see a lot of this
They just
like Satan or say like double Satan. I've seen a few lists like
Well,
that
it's
lately, and
interesting. It's interesting because, like, can you pick anything in the meta that actually kills 20 warriors anymore? Because I can't.
not
Like,
really.
it used to be 5 Plasceptors, right? Or it used to be like aggressors, or it used to be like
Yeah.
AdMech robots before they got nerfed. Like, there's actually nothing in meta that blows away that many warriors. So,
Castellan
like,
robots are still very good. It's just that a 20-man ranger blob is way better.
yeah, that's it. But like, there's actually not much that can clear the full 20 now, and
Mhm.
that's why like in the final game when my opponent had Luminor Xeris and the 20 mans, like I think that has actual play. And then you have like, let's say in a situation, I was talking to someone today, actually Dan Jones, about this, a 20-man Xeris and then little ghost arcs full of 10 mans. Like it's actually like brutally annoying trying to kill all that. So like Necrons, although everyone says they're quite average, you know, I struggle to think
Like,
of an army that has one unit that can one hit a 20 man anymore.
yeah, I mean, that's a great point because plasma in scepters are just too damned expensive now. They're like 65 points a piece or something now.
Yeah,
It's nuts. So if you're
and
bringing 5 of them, that's over 300 points.
yeah,
So
and I know we talked a lot about assault hellblasters, but like let's not beat around the bush. They are very expensive in a world where like incubi and Sicaran infiltrators and
yeah,
admech hounds exist. Like they're
do
not
love my
really a
ass
unit you want
blasters.
everywhere.
Do love my ass blasters,
Look,
but yeah.
I love them, mate. I love them, but it's hard work in a world where an incubi just rolls up and kills them all.
I mean,
Um,
33 points each is really tough
it's
to swallow
steep.
for
It's
the
steep.
Hellblasters. That's what a Deathwing Terminator costs, so
Mm.
hooray.
Yeah, so
Um,
like the only thing I can really think of that can blow away those warriors that's reasonable in meta right now is something like an Alaris Terminator unit with all the blasts and all the bolters. But like
yeah.
you know, they then die to AdMech, so it's like it's I don't know. It's tricky.
Well, I mean, every now and then you hear like, oh yeah, Necrons are bottom of the pile because they were one of the first ninth ed codexes, or well, bottom of the ninth ed pile. They're obviously, you could make an argument about the poor gene stealer cults, but it's like every now and then you see one burst up, and maybe it's because it's a tilt list, but like it'll burst up into the top 6 of a big
Mm.
GT or a major because it's just like you said, nobody has the ability to deal with whatever it brought, which might have been
Yeah,
60
man.
warriors.
Well, yeah, like
Because
if I scored 2 less points in my game, a Necron player just went 4-1 as well
yeah,
instead of me. So
right.
like
Yeah.
like they have potential.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously he was doing well. He went 3-2, and he only lost one by 1 point, which
Yeah,
is
that's it.
insanely close.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, shit, man, it's been a great interview. Like always, it is almost 8 a.m. here, and I still have to get ready for work and stuff. But
Oh, jeez.
yeah, it's totally worth it. I'll probably be up at
Yeah.
the same time tomorrow morning talking to Josh, so it'll
Oh,
all work
cool,
out.
man. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, give him my regards. I only saw him like a day ago, but he's on the other side of the country now on a plane.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll have a good time, and whoever's listening, please tune into that interview with Josh and Gelke because he'll have a lot of good stuff to say about GK. But yeah, hey, thanks, man, for having me on, Rick. It's always good, and whenever you want to chat Deathwatch, I'm here, buddy. I'm
Well,
here.
I do. So, um, do want to remind everybody like and subscribe and upvote and all that
Yeah.
stuff, and also check out Dineeth's podcast, the Normal Blokes. I use Pocket Casts, but I'm sure you can find it
Ah,
absolutely anywhere. So
just Google us.
yeah,
We're on Spotify, iTunes. We're on our Facebook page has links to it, and we're also on YouTube for people who prefer YouTube. So yeah, if you like our stuff or you have any questions or comments, please leave us a message. We always like to hear from our listeners, especially when we have tournaments and people want to know about the list. So yeah,
yeah, absolutely,
thanks again. But yeah,
sure.
that's really it from me.
And don't forget to Call your mother.